in this world. The Merbinger family is the #1 magic family across the continent, and our male lead Eric comes from this very family. 30 years ago, during the war against the demon tribe, the Merbinger family led humanity to victory. However, most of the key members of the family also sacrificed their lives in this battle. And when Eric was just 8 years old, his father, who had already been affected by the war, along with his mother, a magic teacher, all passed away. The only 2 direct bloodlines left of the Merbinger family were Eric and his sister. Since then, the vassal families who once swore loyalty to the Merbinger family have betrayed them. At that time, Eric vowed to become the greatest magician and restore the family's honor. That was his plan. But what happened afterward did not go as planned, because Eric, despite being the direct grandson of the great clan leader, could not even open the first magic circle. This happened because Eric suffered from a very rare condition called magic blockage. Because of that, he could not use magic. The dream of restoring Mervinger's honor was gradually put aside, and he became a laughingstock to the world. For many years, Eric trained to the point of exhaustion just to find a way to cure the magic blockage, but he was completely stuck. However, heaven never abandons the good. Eric guessed that his prayers had reached heaven when one day he met a dragon. That was also his only chance to restore the family from the ruins. "It is you. You will free me from this cursed seal. My new vessel, come here. Merge with me, and together we will rule this world. You human boy." Those were the words the black dragon said to Eric at that time. Then, the black power gradually invaded his body. At first, the feeling was very uncomfortable, and if Eric had known it was a test from the demon lord, he would never have sought that dragon. However, as the only surviving son of the Merbinger family, how could Eric allow himself to be devoured by this? On the opposite side, that bastard also sensed what was happening. He did not know where the mysterious power on Eric came from, but he could not deny it was very strong. Then, when Eric lifted the black energy veil, it stepped out. The Demon King could feel a threat, just like in the Demon War years ago. "I hope this voice will reach our descendants in the future. Later here." According to the agreement, the first Demon King would be swallowed. Eric's voice echoed, but it seemed that voice did not belong to him. Then, with just a snap of his fingers, the game was reversed. Eric went from being devoured to the devourer, and the Demon King, who was very pleased to have found a vessel, now became weak and pitiful, only able to scream helplessly as Eric's power swallowed him. After that snap, the sky was calm and the sea was still. Then on Eric's arm appeared a dark blue tattoo of a dragon. However, it seemed Eric was not really clear about the situation he was experiencing. The evidence was that he didn't even know where he was or what he was doing. Then, in a daze, Eric suddenly saw a figure. Although the face was unclear, he felt very familiar with that person. Then, the voice of a seemingly extraordinary man echoed, "We are the first scholars pursuing the pinnacle of magic." This voice made Eric even more confused, because he felt like he had heard it before. Yet, in his confused mind, he could not figure out who the owner of that voice was. However, some have fought for greater power. This person continued, "They brought misfortune to the world because they were corrupted by demons. We have decided to fix this. And to atone for our past, we have created an opportunity in this world. An opportunity to purge demons to the root." When that voice sounded, Eric seemed to see a giant demon, or rather the demon lord. The things slowly passing before his eyes seemed to reenact the demon war many years ago. And the owner of the mysterious voice also firmly stated that destroying all demons was their mission. However, demons will never completely disappear. They will always reappear. He also added, "You must continuously destroy them again and again until then the council cannot be disbanded." That fierce battle was happening right before Eric's eyes. Although the entities appearing before him did not touch him nor injure him, it was still too realistic. So realistic that Eric was unaware he was just lost in fragments of memories. And when he saw an imminent threat approaching the mysterious voice's owner, he did not hesitate to rush forward. "Watch out!" Eric shouted loudly, simultaneously reaching out to grab the mysterious man's hand. But he only grabbed a patch of air before the illusion disappeared. The Demon King was gone. The man with the mysterious voice was gone. Eric had returned to reality. It could be said it was just a dream. Now, Eric was lying on a soft bed in a room filled with sunlight very suitable for recuperation. Beside the bed, someone was sitting there facing away. "But that familiar red hair, if not Shin, then who else would be here?" Eric called out. The other party responded bitterly, "Are you crying?" "Me crying," Shin stubbornly replied, but his shoulders trembled violently. His voice also shook, making Eric wave his hand as if to say he was crying too. Shin silently cursed Eric. "Why did you wake up at this moment?" Making him embarrassed and stammering. "It's okay, you can cry. I remember you cried when we were still in the cave." Eric originally wanted to comfort him, but unexpectedly poked Shin's weak spot even more, until he half-turned his face eyes as if wanting to kill Eric. Only then did Eric quietly say, sorry, big brother." The intimidation act was done. Shin then told Eric to get up and get off the bed. Eric had thought Shin was going to beat him up, but Shin only wanted to confirm a suspicion. That after leaving the dragon cave, Eric had grown taller. Previously, he was half a head shorter than Shin. Now, after going through an ordeal, the two were the same height. Even Eric did not expect this to happen. Looking in the mirror, he looked incredulous. Eric never thought his body would change. After leaving the dragon cave, waiting for Eric to calm down a bit, Shin asked, "What happened, tell me. And what about the dragon?" "Well, I'll tell you first at the right time. I promise." Eric scratched his neck. Although he really wanted to, he felt he still couldn't tell Shin these things now. Shin looked at Eric for a long time, then sighed deeply. Although the unclear truth made him uncomfortable, Shin trusted his buddy and guessed Eric had some idea, or some plan. So Shin patted Eric's shoulder to encourage him. But on the other hand, Eric keeping secrets from him still hurt Shin's pride. "Don't be mad," Eric carefully coaxed Shin like a child. Then smoothly changed the subject like sunsilk. "By the way, how is that place?" Shin was peeling an egg while saying his family would take over that place. Eric thought that was good. At least it was in Shin's family's hands instead of others. He thought the Nestor family would be busy excavating the dragon cave after taking over. Who would have thought, Shin calmly said, they only guarded the gate to prevent anyone from entering or leaving, because it belonged to the one who found it. They couldn't let anyone do whatever they wanted recklessly. Shin added a very trustworthy tone. "What he said is true. According to the law, the dragon cave belongs to the finder, but usually big academies can take advantage by requesting excavation permission. Of course, after this dragon cave was discovered, the magic tower and the academy would go crazy, trying to get involved there." Eric understood this very well, so he was even more grateful to his close friend. He also knew the Nestor family wanted permission to excavate that cave too, but Shin still did this for him. Truly a wonderful friend. "Why are you laughing? Stop laughing, you weirdo." Shin got goosebumps from Eric's cheesy smile. "Thanks, heh." But aside from Shin helping Eric through this, suddenly a name popped into his head. Right old hunchback Barks, too. How could I forget the bastard who dared to plot against me when exploring the dragon cave? Thinking of Barks, a malicious smile appeared on Eric's face, causing Shin's goosebumps to multiply. "Hey, what crazy scheme are you planning now?" Every time he smiles like that, something is definitely about to happen. Gritting his teeth, Shin asked, I want to ask you for a favor." Eric suddenly approached. This expression of his made Shin feel even more uneasy. Who would have thought Eric's request was actually very simple? "Just to announce outside that you have been seriously injured." Although Shin did not understand what you were planning to do, he still agreed to follow his friend's request. So right after that, the Royal Magic Hospital became Eric's place of recovery. Eric, who was severely injured and in a deep coma after returning from the dragon's lair. When Barks and his subordinates came here, he was informed accordingly, and the doctor of that Royal Magic Hospital also bluntly invited him to leave. "I went all the way here and you tell me to go back." "What about the excavation rights?" "Are you planning to leave that cave alone?" Among the people following Barks, murmurs arose, and then these questions became more intense. They questioned why the people of the Nestor family blocked the hospital gate. But even if they asked, they still could not get in. Eric stood on the third floor looking down through the window, feeling delighted and mocking. "These old fools are really idiots." "Please rest well, Cadonis," said the spokesperson of the Nestor family. At this time, just after he left, Cadonis came in to clean up lunch. Eric finally breathed a sigh of relief because the space became a bit more private enough for him to talk with another creature present here. And besides you, no one else could see it. "Hey, why don't you stop staring like that? How long do you plan to keep staring at me?" Mephisto, facing Eric, now had a scowling face. Mephisto Forrest was the supreme demon king whom Eric had conquered. Conversely, in that dragon's lair, not only did he lose the container that he had struggled to find, but he also lost his freedom. How could he not be scowling? "Hey, Sammy, show some respect to the honorable king." "Standing right in front of you, huh?" Mephisto Felix retorted irritably. He was the great demon king who once made the whole world tremble because of his danger and chaos with the full name Mephisto Felix. However, now, he was just a malicious spirit trailing behind Eric and had to endure Eric's contempt without being able to resist. Not long after waking up, Eric vaguely sensed his own change, and as he thought, he could not imagine that what happened in the dragon's lair was all true. The proof was the dragon's heart inside his chest, the source of absolute power of the ancient dragon. That dragon clearly died after being pierced by the Demon King's red spear. But now inside his chest, there was a beating dragon's heart. Eric was not sure if it belonged to that dragon, because he still felt something different, and his vague memory only reached the part where the Demon King tried to seize his body. That was why Eric wanted to extract information from this Mephisto forest. In ancient times, when gods ruled the world, there was one called the Demon God, symbolizing darkness, and he had 4 attendants. They were respectively Phoenix the Destroyer, Insenai the Mad Fort Noxer the Debauched, and finally Astorigali Peccatum, the origin of sin. And this last name was also the origin of the Demon King. The Demon King, the supreme and most powerful Demon King in legends. I told you not to call me Mephisto. My name was given by the great demon god. Mephisto Felix went mad, but clearly his anger had no effect to scare Eric. After all, this name now was just a noisy evil spirit without any threat. Do demon kings usually behave so foolishly? I have told you many times, but you still don't understand. Are you hard of hearing because of old age? Eric yawned and replied, then climbed back into bed. Mephistopheles was so angry he trembled. 1,000 years already. He had waited a full 1,000 years, yet not only could he not resurrect, but a mortal had also stolen all his mana. He once made the whole world bow down. Beneath his feet, that was also the reason for Mephistopheles' existence. Then he met a powerful enemy, the Dragon King Senna, who blocked his path of conquest. And in the final battle, both were buried together. Thus 1,000 years passed. Mephisto Felix waited and waited, finally meeting Eric the Container, qualified to release him from this seal. During the exploration of the dragon's lair, he excellently passed all the tests he set. What? Eric still thought that it was the dragon's tests, and then when Mephisto Forest almost succeeded, he had taken control of his body and soul. As everyone saw, a huge power inside him suddenly erupted, and all of Mephisto Forest's plans were ruined. Now he was left with only a fragment of demon energy. Even his incarnation was weak and pitiful. Nevertheless, Mephisto Felix was still very curious. He still couldn't figure out what the huge power Eric possessed really was. It must be a terrifying power that could consume even him. Most importantly, Eric now had absolutely no respect for a legendary demon king like him. This made Mephisto's life even harder. Felix because he valued his pride more than his life. Although this demon king kept nagging in his ear, Eric completely ignored it. At this moment, he was still thinking about the mysterious voice he heard before waking up. This person said that he hoped the message would reach his descendants in the future someday. After regaining consciousness, Eric seemed to guess that the voice belonged to his grandfather here. Following the first Demon King's pact, he would be swallowed. This phrase suddenly appeared in Eric's mind, making him startle and sit up. That's right. So it means he absorbed the Demon King's power. Then the Merbinger family's heirloom pendant is a tool to devour the Demon King. Or, in other words, it is a tool to swallow demons. If so, it could devour other demons besides Mephisto Felix if it already has the first demon. Then there will be a second, a third, and many more. Thinking of this, Eric couldn't help but turn to look at Mephisto Forest and then smile wickedly. If his guess was true, then demons would soon become his mana Mephisto Forest. Although he couldn't guess what Eric was thinking, just seeing this smile made him shiver down his spine. So right after that, Eric sneaked out. Mephisto Felix kept asking why he came here. But Eric had no intention of answering this noisy, evil spirit. Before figuring out how to use the power of this pendant, he needed to verify a few things. So Eric sat cross-legged and began circulating mana in his body. It was amazing. Even with his eyes closed, he could clearly feel what was happening around him. For example, a ladybug flapping its wings or the feeling of a gentle breeze passing by. Eric could see and feel everything. To check if his suspicion was correct, Eric instinctively reached out and used burning magic. A blazing fire erupted in front of him. As this happened, Mephisto Felix's face turned pale because it was dragon magic. But how could an ordinary person use dragon magic? Even if Eric had Merbinger blood, this was a bit too much. As for Eric standing before the fire, he was stunned for a long time, then he tilted his head back and let out a few dry laughs. The feeling was hard to describe, so now Eric could use magic. Finally, the cursed magic blockage that tormented him for years. The insults calling him the disgrace of the Merbinger family, all those who betrayed the family and abandoned him. It was time to settle everything once and for all. Below, reporters continuously flashed their cameras with flashing lights, repeatedly asking questions. Is it true that student Eric Merbinger is in a coma? What about the right to excavate the Dragon Cave? The officials carefully gave answers. The official announcement will be made at the Magic Tower, so please confirm the statement. After the press conference ended, he quickly left to return to work. His whole body was still trembling, his voice choked with embarrassment. Young master, please don't make me do things like this. At this moment, Shin rubbed his temples and praised he has arrived. Well done. He complained, it's nothing. Every time I'm with Eric, the trouble you cause almost kills me. Shin worriedly said, but if your scam is exposed, the Magic Tower and the royal family won't support you. Can you bear the consequences? Jin hesitated, holding out a handkerchief in front of him, then continued. Eric said he has already considered everything, so I will trust him. The man wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Eric's excited face appeared in Shin's mind. The greater the risk, the higher the reward. He was so angry he was trembling silently, cursing Eric in his heart. That bastard! Does he know how much I've endured? They wiped their sweat while asking, where did Eric go? She replied indifferently. I don't know, he must have wandered off somewhere. He recalled the note Eric left. Please let me go for a bit. What are friends for? Relying entirely on you, hehe. The thought imprinted in his mind. With that weak body, where could he possibly go? Suddenly, among the stack of documents in his hand, he discovered a letter. They slowly stepped in front of young Master Shin. He stammered anxiously, something's wrong. At the same time, a figure appeared at the door. Shin's voice rang out, what's going on? Their eyes fixed on the blazing red seal on the letter. He hesitated, unwilling to say it. The door burst open with a powerful kick. She angrily shouted, your brother, what kind of conspiracy are you plotting without telling me? His face was full of horror. Sister, why are you here? The woman spoke coldly. Why are you surprised? Standing before them was the firebird witch Taza Nerestor. Is it strange for a troubled sister to visit her brother? The Royal Magic Tower and the Necromancer Alliance each produced the century's greatest geniuses. In the same generation, they were the 3 stars leading the empire called the New 3 Stars. Hey, you guys, aren't you going to show me my letter? He tried to cover up. I've been a bit scatterbrained lately. Shin's sister, the youngest in history to earn the title of Grand Mage, was one of those 3. He frowned, his voice slightly annoyed. So why did you come here, sister? She calmly replied, I heard your friend is ill, and since I also have a magic certificate, I couldn't just stand by. Eric isn't in the room, is the kid somewhere else? Anxiety rose in Shin's heart. He's gone. If she enters the sick room, my feet will turn cold. He secretly planned to chase her away quickly, before she finds out. Shin lied. Eric is currently not available to meet others. Taza looked at him with cold eyes. Is that so? Shin trembled. So please don't bother the doctor and go back. She suddenly grabbed her brother's hand. Taza was annoyed. Are you ordering me around? She asked, shall we continue our conversation? What happened with the right to excavate the Dragon's Cave? Shin was stunned, thinking, Dragon's Cave, I forgot this witch is a dragon fanatic. Taza coldly questioned, no one has taken it yet right. He, nervously sweating profusely, hesitated to answer that. Shin was forced to betray his friends. The decision was Eric's. She frowned, her threatening gaze fixed on the person before her. Magic flared fiercely, lighting up the whole room. Taza said coldly, then there's no other way. She tightly gripped his trembling arm, then gently released it, leaving Shin stunned. She waved her hand and left. Contact me when your friend wakes up. Taza continued, if you don't contact me first, be ready to get beaten, little brother. The image of his sister tormenting him suddenly flooded Shin's mind, making him silently plead, hurry up, Eric. Eric's weak call startled Shin. At this moment, the young master looked utterly miserable. Has she left yet? He shouted anxiously. In the town area, news spread quickly. The heir of the noble magical family was unconscious. Eric stood in front of a newsstand. A cloaked figure concealed their identity. The sound of a knife echoed down the street. Here's the news who will get the right to excavate the Dragon's Cave, he praised. Shin is handling everything well for me. At that moment, a figure in the newspaper caught Eric's attention. Wow, who is this? His eyes fixed on the newspaper in the director's hand. Our director looks pretty photogenic, huh? Eric muttered. Better laugh while you can, director. Scene shifts to the academy. Seeing the information on the newspaper River flattered and congratulated the principal. He bowed humbly. "Now you can do what you want," interrupting. "Don't be so hasty." The old man cleared his throat. "The election hasn't even started yet." Raven grumbled, "I was too impatient. I can't understand the feeling of wanting to protect the future of the academy and its students, Sir Principal." Flattering words poured in sweetly, making the madman laugh delightedly. "Honestly, I told you I'm not principal yet." Then the old man inquired about the situation here. "How is the condition of the student Eric Kia?" He immediately replied, "I heard that he has to barely survive every day." Although his face could not hide a look of satisfaction, Dean still pretended to exclaim, "Oh my God." "What bad luck?" Raven immediately suggested. "But if he wakes up, it will be a big problem. We should hire some assassins too." The old man's face darkened like a stormy night. Magic around him flared fiercely as if about to burst out. Angrily shouting silence, his eyes shone brightly, his gaze sharp as a blade filled with overwhelming aura. He trembled, sweat pouring down like a shower, cutting off every drop of blood. "I apologize." Suddenly, the magic vanished as if it never existed. Speaking in a low voice, "There will be a vacant professor position after the election." His words were full of hidden meaning. "I wonder who will take that position, Reynolds. How do you manage people?" Dean continued speaking. "I am just the dean. I don't know what is happening outside the academy." He seemed to understand and quietly exclaimed, "Ah!" Then Reynolds bowed deeply as a sign of gratitude. "I will not disappoint you." The old man silently took a sip of tea. Behind that calm appearance was a deep gaze full of scheming. At the same time, the entire town had sunk into darkness, only rays of light from the window panes filtering outside, creating a gentle yet vivid night scene. In a dark alley, a figure cloaked in black silently hid in the shadows. That person quietly removed the cloak's hood. Eric's face gradually appeared under the dim light. He looked up at the building in front of him. "Well, let's get started." Eric pondered with his mind's eye, seeing the other side of the world. Thoughts arose in his mind. "If I find the hidden space," Eric suddenly raised his hand, thinking silently and channeling mana from the dragon's heart into it. At that moment, the blood in his veins seemed to burst into a fierce blaze. Eric was stunned, his eyes wide with shock, his mind blank. His whole body trembled, as if a strange energy had awakened something dormant inside his body. Immediately, a burst of magic erupted, sweeping Eric soaring into the sky, leaving the cloak alone on the ground. It shone brightly, dazzling the eyes, waves of energy surging violently with no sign of stopping. Then a thunderous explosion shook the entire ground. The aftershock spread wildly like a tsunami. Excitement spread throughout his body. He could hardly believe he could use magic without complicated incantations. Eric breathed a sigh of relief. The first step was okay. Under the full moonlight illuminating the path ahead, he walked leisurely, thinking to himself, "I am finally at the starting line." A bright smile blossomed on Eric's face as if all worries had vanished. At that moment, Mephi appeared, his voice mocking, "How pathetic you can only use magic of that level, even when possessing my power. Just a simple jump. Are you using a trick?" These words felt like salt in his heart. He was right. I need to be faster, stronger. Seeing Eric silent, he angrily pointed and shouted, "You bastard! How dare you ignore me when I'm talking? In my time, humans, demons, and dragons all shrank back when they saw me. Whenever I spoke," Eric pondered, "there is something called consciousness, the imprint in the dragon's true magic." He slowly raised his left hand forward. Mana-gathered thoughts began to be guided and shaped. Eric's right hand also quickly accumulated magic, then spoke aloud. After that, both hands quickly formed seals to activate the magic. Mephi tensed, watching every movement. A feeling of unease crept into every breath. At this moment, sensing the opportunity, he shouted and jumped. At that moment, Eric's foot lightly trembled, and in an instant, his whole body was suspended in midair. The scene before him shocked him, shouting, "Impossible!" Eric's shout echoed, followed by a fierce leap. His eyes shone brightly, the flame of magic blazing as Eric flew relentlessly through layers of air. He involuntarily glanced down, startled, exclaiming, "Huh!" Then Eric began to fall freely, panicking and shouting too high. His heart was filled with wonderful excitement. Simple but extremely effective. Then Eric activated magic in an instant, rushing forward. Once again, Mephi closed in right behind him, his heart in turmoil. He frowned, a thought etched in his mind. A mere kid who just learned magic. Already using consciousness, imprint, and dual magic. Mephi recalled the eternal enemy of the demon world, the Merbinger family. He thought silently, even the strongest Merbingers might not compare to this guy. Mephi stared intently at the person in front of him. A thought flashed through his mind. Oh no, there is. His heart gradually confirmed it was only one person, a familiar face with a proud smile on his lips. Eyes that seemed to challenge everything before him. Mephi was startled. Oh no, I shouldn't think like that. He silently schemed. No matter the cost, before he became even stronger, I must take over that body and crush this dangerous seed. Mephi's face darkened his mind in turmoil. Is there any way? At this moment, Eric's mind was extremely confused. He could not sense the killing intent radiating from him at all. He stood still, pondering. The mind seal was wonderful, but it was still difficult to utilize it by himself. Eric clenched his fists tightly to become stronger. I have to understand the core of dragon magic. I need a teacher who can keep secrets. He was frustrated. In this academy already controlled by madness, there was no one capable enough to teach him. Soon after, Eric lowered himself gently to the ground. He kept thinking, at least it has to be someone on par with Instagram. But no way would they accept me as a disciple. Eric sighed softly, thinking if he were still alive. He shook his head, telling himself no, not even my father or uncle. At this moment, Mephi was still immersed in his own story. Trampling on my own seed, even with legs, I can see him. An idea popped into Eric's mind. Wait! Without hesitation, he called out loudly, Hey, Mephi, Eric here. Can you teach me magic? A thought echoed in his mind. Now I just thought of this way. Mephi must be the most suitable to be my teacher. Mephi shouted in surprise. What the hell are you saying? He immediately turned around, looking cold. But as soon as he heard Eric's voice, the corner of Mephi's mouth slightly curled into a smug smile. Mephi was scheming, pretending not to care. What benefit would that bring me? Eric replied, I will create a new container for you using alchemy. Mephi sneered. You think an ordinary person can create a container for me? Eric continued, then make me strong enough to do that. Those conditions still didn't satisfy him. It was still not enough. He smiled slyly. What can you do if I don't get any stronger? Eric raised his hand and suggested, then propose other conditions. Mephi's response made him freeze. I refuse you. He added, why would I enlighten you? I might consider it if you become my kind. Seeing Eric remain silent, Mephi glanced at him cautiously. At this moment, he was very pleased. That embarrassed face satisfied and indifferent. So you dare to play tricks on me all this time? A plan flashed through his mind. Although I am still too weak to devour him, if I secretly use dark magic on him while teaching Mephi thought he will become stronger and stronger. At the same time, his soul will be invaded by dark magic. Then I will devour him. He smirked with a self-satisfied look. Now kneel down and beg me to accept you as my disciple. Know your place and obediently become my container. You stupid Merbinger, oh damn it. Suddenly Eric shouted, cut that crap out. Mephi turned pale, his facial muscles twitching. A look of shock spread in his eyes. He was stunned, speechless. Huh? Eric raised his voice. Listen, Mephi demands have to have limits. Eric angrily spat, his voice full of resentment. Don't you understand what situation you're in? He stared at Eric with wide eyes, stammering, What? Crazy laughter erupted, making Mephi so angry he trembled. You bastard! Immediately, he furiously charged at Eric. Eric did not dodge, but calmly said a silencing phrase. In an instant, Mephi's mouth was tightly sealed. Eric happily exclaimed, success beyond expectation. Mephi was furious, cursing non-stop, but his mouth was sealed shut, only able to make muffled sounds. Eric quickly covered his ears, teasing, Oh my, you're too noisy. Those curses were impossible. I can be subdued just with the mind seal. Then Eric chanted a spell and acted cutely. Very quickly, a little Mephi wearing pink bunny ears and puckering lips appeared before him. This transformation left Eric speechless, his blood seeming to drain from his 7 orifices. Finally, unable to bear it, he bent over and vomited. My eyes, oh God! After vomiting, Eric raised his head and looked at Mephi, still maintaining that cute action, blaming himself for asking him to do that disgusting thing. Damn, it feels like I will vomit again if I look anymore. Trying to suppress the disgust churning in his stomach. Disgust roiling inside, he handed him a notebook. Calm down. I don't want to see what happened earlier again, okay? If you change your mind, write down all the explanations about mind magic and mind seals here. I will undo it for you after reading all the content. Both silenced and affected by the adorable actions, Mephi was indescribably infatuated, screaming inside. Do you think I will compromise with just this much? For me, someone who has endured being sealed for 1,000 years, Eric is obviously not a patient person. He stretched and muttered, "So should I use this time to practice now?" At night, Eric continued practicing with a fireball in hand, ignoring Mifi being forced to act adorably. With a scream inside, he thought, "I will generously forgive you if you admit your mistake." The next day, Mifi was furious, seeing Eric not even glancing at him. He silently thought that Eric should be begging him to teach magic by now. The following day, Eric became more proficient with fire magic. Meanwhile, Mifi began to attract attention. He was confused about what was wrong with him. And the next day, after many days of being ignored and not spoken to, Mifi started thinking, anyway, I will teach him eventually. Should he pretend to compromise? Reason said no, he could not lose. But the body was very honest. Holding a pen, he wrote the basic principles of the consciousness spell. Seeing that he finally compromised, Eric smiled with satisfaction. Mifi was very angry. Did you have to go that far? He was furious inside, his pride rising. I am the demon king Mephisto Falls. No way will I hand it over to a human. However, his body seemed not to obey him much. Looking back, Mifi saw himself currying favor with Eric. What is this? Why am I acting like his puppy? Eric took the notebook. Basic principles of the consciousness spell, an ancient knowledge that he could not find in any book. He read through it once and praised, "Good, very good. Shouldn't you be happy to help me?" Keeping his promise, Eric snapped his fingers to end the adorable actions and returned Mifi's bodily freedom. But then he continued requesting about the information here. He pointed to a certain part in the notebook. Can you write it in more detail? Maybe I will let you speak. Wasn't he a bit frustrated for not being able to talk? Mifi trembled with anger and cursed inside, "You despicable bastard!" When he received the additional details, Eric was very dissatisfied. What the hell is this? Didn't you know you should have written more the day before? Seeing Eric's provoking face, Mifi was dumbfounded in rage, but only he understood what he meant. Which bastard decided that? Eric ignored his resistance. If you write more than once a day, adding a little each time, I will lift the silence for 3 days. How about that? Can you handle it? Mifi was now Eric's meat and fish, Eric the knife and chopping board. Once in his hands, he could only endure Eric's complaints and criticisms. Your handwriting is terrible, right, Neater? Wait, I've reconsidered. Several times is not enough. Why don't you just write everything at once? Have you ever thought about teaching me some ultimate skills? Mifi wrote while scheming, wait and see the dark magic hidden in these notes will completely tear apart the body and soul of anyone who does not respect heaven and earth. After researching and learning magic from Mifi, Eric had some achievements. Before him was a shining ice block. He had only learned the beginning part. Cold air was emanating from the ice. In the forest where there should be no snow or ice, just with this much power, he could create a large ice block several times bigger. Mifi's body refused to believe it. But the cold around him made him alert. This was impossible. Why was there no sign of dark magic activation? He clearly remembered putting it in there. At this moment, Eric suddenly turned his head and looked back. What's wrong with you? Mephisto's face clearly showed an intention to do something. Something shady with my body, right? But nothing happened, which disappointed him. Mifi turned away quickly to hide his cowardice. I don't understand what you're saying, Eric said. Do you think I'm stupid enough to learn whatever you give me without questioning? Facing Mifi's frowning face, Eric smiled. That's fine. Anyway, thanks. Thanks to you, I've reached a new level, which made Mifi sweat nervously and panic inside. He thought, you already know, damn it, all this damn stuff. Eric checked the notebook for anything else. Becoming stronger and stronger, he didn't want to stop at all. Mifi shouted, Are you dreaming, you human bastard? Feeling he was too noisy, you threatened to snap your fingers all right then. Silence, please. Mifi hurriedly said there was nothing else. Eric was quite surprised by this. What Mifi said, besides the true soul magic of my consciousness, there is nothing else I can teach you. The atmosphere suddenly fell silent. A flock of birds flapped their wings and flew away from the nest. Eric was stunned, thinking to himself about that true soul consciousness. He meant the highest level of soul consciousness spell besides the divine voice. Soul consciousness spell Mifi showed obvious disdain. You can't fully understand it at your current level. You might go mad. Seeing the other's attitude, Eric scratched his head, pondering. He was not lying. What now, Mifi suddenly said, magic can only be perfected on the battlefield. That is the fate of the Merbinger family, your house until now. This made Eric stunned. Magic can only be perfected on the battlefield. Childhood memories flooded his mind. His father once taught him that was the motto of the Merbinger family. Those who will continuously protect the continent from demons. Father taught his sister and Eric about the honor of the Merbinger family on the land devastated by the war with demons, even though he said nothing. Eric's father was seriously injured from the aftermath of the war. Surely he still remembers the days fighting as a mage beside his grandfather. After the war, he was wounded, his body weak and deteriorating day by day. When Eric was young and mischievous, he said, "Dad, when I go to the battlefield, I will be able to use cool magic like Grandpa." "Right, great mage, Eric is here." He hesitated. After that, Eric's mother interrupted Eric. She placed her hand on her husband's shoulder, making him tremble while she looked at their little son and smiled, saying, "I already told you. What must you do to become a strong mage?" Little Eric replied sadly, "Study." She was pleased. "That's right, study. You can't just have the shell of being a powerful mage like your father." "I didn't tell you that your grandfather became the greatest mage even before he became the strongest person on the continent." Seeing his wife not respecting him, Eric's father gently reminded her, "I'm still the head of the family, you know." Eric's mother raised her voice. "Dear husband, please stop giving the kids false hopes. Honestly, no man in the Merbinger family knows how to listen." The mother turned to praise their daughter. "Our Hiji always listens well to her mother." Then the father took the opportunity to whisper to his son, "Nevertheless, magic should only be perfected on the battlefield, son." When Eric thought he was finally being taught something useful by his father, he disappeared before his eyes. His mother quickly pushed him away. And didn't forget to give Eric a task. "Make sure you finish reading the research summary on the relationship between the ancient magic array system and the new era language system by the end of the day." "All right, Hiji, watch Eric for me, Hiji." She coldly pinched Eric's ear and dragged him away. Despite his screams and protests, "Mom, no today, I want to play with Dad." "Sis, my ear is about to be torn off. Let me go, damn it." The father spoke up, wanting to rescue his son. "Dear wife, studying is good, but after all, they are just children." The mother sighed. "That's because you spoil the boy too much, causing bad habits. Like father, like son." The sun gradually set, facing the powerful rooftop. He could only helplessly sigh. Then the scene shifted to a stormy night. Dark clouds covered the moon in the sky. The sobbing echoed from the Merbinger mansion. The sick parents of the father grew worse, and the mother who cared for him day and night suddenly collapsed. The father spent his last breaths beside the mother, and they peacefully passed away together. Before dying, the weak father said, "I'm sorry, my love. You always shone brighter than anyone in this world." "It's all my fault." The mother gently comforted him. "Don't say that. Since meeting you and having good children, there hasn't been a day I wasn't happy." They held hands. He whispered thanks to her, "You are the one who raised our children." So she truly was a wonderful mother. She looked for her daughter, Hiki. "Are you there?" Hiki replied, "Yes." The mother instructed, "Please take care of your little brother. Mom apologizes and thanks you for these words." Hiki trembled, unable to hold back tears. The father looked at his little son, Eric. "I'm sorry, son, your magic blockage is my fault." Eric's face was covered with tears as he sobbed, "Dad, are you very scared? How could Dad leave like this? If Dad is gone, what will happen to me and sister?" Suddenly, the father's thin hand touched his face. "Wipe away your tears," he whispered. "Looking back at my life compared to the time I was a mage fighting on the battlefield, I was much happier during the days I was a father to my children. You don't need to become a mage." He smiled one last time. "I only hope that you will live happily with those around you." He finished speaking, his hand on Eric's face slowly dropped. Eric was stunned, tears streaming like a river as he looked at his parents' hands still tightly holding each other. Eric softly called Dad, but received no reply. Startled, his tears suddenly stopped, replaced by a heart-wrenching scream of pain. The painful flashback ended. Returning to the sunlit primeval forest, Eric silently whispered to his deceased father, "But Dad, you were wrong to say I don't need to become a mage. If I'm not strong enough, I will be abandoned in this reality." He clenched his fists with determination. "That's why I have to become stronger so no one can turn their back on me anymore," he muttered. "Magic can only be perfected on the battlefield." Eric agreed with this. "That's right. What I need most now is real combat experience." He pondered where to go next. The Blood Demon Forest is full of ghost-type monsters. That place is too dangerous. Then the Goblin Cave is already overcrowded. Where else? Suddenly, Eric remembered his father's advice. "Listen, son. There are 7 secret zones of disarmament across the continent where our ancestors once lived." He had found the right place. Yes, that's it. That's the place. Immediately after, he called his demon companion, "Let's go, Mephisto." The demon crossed his arms and asked, "Where to?" Eric replied, "I will go to the snowman territory." His eyes gleamed with a blue hue. "The snowman highlands. Warm golden sunlight covered the forest. A gentle breeze stirred the branches. At a clear, cool stream hidden among the trees, Eric was bathing deep in thought. That could be a problem if my identity is revealed. I have to change my appearance. Without hesitation, Eric used magic to splash the stream water high into the air. Tears fell from above, pouring down on his head. When his hair was wet enough, Eric suddenly commanded to cut it. The water poured down, suddenly turning into sharp water blades, cutting off his long, flowing hair. Eric's magical control had become more proficient. The stream water, flexible like the hands of a skilled barber, quickly trimmed his messy hair. In just a moment, his long hair was neatly cut. However, just cutting his hair wasn't enough to hide his identity. He muttered, "Transform." Eric transformed into a charming, tanned young man with neat, stylish brown hair. Only his green irises remained unchanged. Looking at his new appearance, he smiled to himself. Looks okay now. Eric headed to the city at the foot of the snowy mountain. At the guide branch, someone said there was a team preparing to depart. You're in luck. The guide said nowadays no one goes to the snowman highlands anymore. It's surprising that suddenly many people want to go there. Our team is over there. Eric looked where the man pointed. The door creaked open. The guide said they've arrived just in time. Leading the group was a lively, cheerful boy. Dressed in thick winter clothes, looks like we have a newcomer. Eric casually looked at the group he was about to join. The group was quite large, including 4 herbalists, 3 demon hunters equipped with weapons, and 5 people hiding their energy. This group was all fully covered, faces concealed. The boy was probably the team leader, always radiating positive energy. Then I'll introduce myself again. Our tribe has a tradition of naming people based on their birthday. My name is Manhwa, meaning Monday morning in the week. You might be wondering what good this does. Today is Monday morning in the week. In common language, that's Tuesday. So as long as you follow closely, you won't be in danger. Because he's a spirit, no one can see Mephisto, but he is affected by those around him. He grumbled. This damn guy talks too much, pretending not to listen. I swear one day I'll tear that mouth off. Eric ignored those complaints. He raised his hand to ask, Yes, Manhwa, right, can I buy a communication crystal? Some herbalists whispered, What for? Our village doesn't have crystals. Someone suggested, You can use something like carrier pigeons or send letters instead. Suddenly, Manhwa spoke up naturally. I remember an extremely funny incident that happened before. It involved pigeons and sending letters. Someone interrupted, saying, Really bad luck, let's go. Manhwa was undeterred. The boy walked and said, What a pity, I will tell you on the way, so let's go. Eric worried inside. She will be upset if you don't contact her soon. Things are getting more complicated. Anyway, you already told Shin he will handle this. On the way into the plateau, snowman Manhwa told the story of the carrier pigeon, and then the pigeon suddenly dashed into the chimney, but before realizing it, with that information, that chimney must belong to the thief who stole money from the person living next to the lover of the grandmother of the oldest village chief here. On the way, Mephi looked around, feeling this place quite familiar. This is where the snowmen live. Eric curiously asked, Do you know about the snowmen? Have you been here before? He replied arrogantly, Of course they are scum who dare to admire us. Hearing that Eric was startled, our snowmen demons. Mephi shouted indignantly, Don't put me on the same level as that trash. Eric was silent, thinking he originally thought they were just monsters, but they are connected to the demon realm. Amazing Mephi walked ahead without looking back. However, their former king was truly useful. He must have received the blessing of the demon lord. Although his fate was not so lucky, Eric had many questions in his mind. Did the snowmen have a ruler in the past? You slid and heard Mephi say his tomb might still be around here. Hearing that, you asked a tomb, Do you know where it is? He shook his head. Even if it's still here, it must have been robbed already. Eric glanced at Mephi. Thinking if snowmen are demons, their parts must have some connection to the clan's Secret 7 when he was young. You once lay on your father's body hearing him tell old stories. Secret 7 is the sanctuary of the ancestors built to protect the clan's heritage, Eric. Later, when you grow up and become clan chief, come to the first snowman plateau. Confirm the entire clan heritage there, and pay respect to the ancestors. Holding the pendant in his hand, Eric pondered. He wondered what the clan heritage could be, not sure. You can learn more about this magical pendant, if you go there or not. Ahead, Manhwa was still talking non-stop. I wonder where the boy gets so much energy to talk all day like that. If you go according to legend, passed down from generation to generation in the tribe, the first snowman appeared abandoned by her husband and left here on this plateau. The woman died after revenge. She met Yukiona, who suddenly appeared, and that's how the story began. Manhwa's childish voice nagging in the ear made Mephi feel furious. He covered his ears and questioned Eric. Can't you use magic to shut that guy up, look? My ears are bleeding now. Eric didn't care. She endured it. What kind of ghost bleeds? He paid attention and stayed alert around. Talking about the snowman, that guy kept mentioning why haven't they appeared yet just then ahead. Manhwa turned to look at everyone. The lively boy announced, "Okay, everyone, the path from here will be quite difficult. Before continuing, we should eat something." So the group stopped to rest and light a campfire. The group sat separately. Eric sat alone. Someone stood up and stepped toward the 3 demon hunters. Eric suddenly heard him ask the demon hunters, "Can we have some fire, please?" Because this person was in the group hiding his identity, you couldn't help but squint to examine the mana energy emitted from him was quite strong. Eric silently judged him as strong as a noble knight. That person asked for fire, then returned to the group. Thanks to the new fire, the fire near them gradually flared, spreading warm heat. Eric rated a fan. "They don't seem to be targeting you. Are they carrying out some secret mission?" Eric noticed a person with a blue hood. The most prominent and different in the group is that person the leader. He didn't look like it. When Eric was thinking the other party took off his hood, Eric was slightly startled seeing the other's face. But the demon hunters also saw in the blink of an eye that it was Isabelle, a beautiful and polite, noble girl. "Thank you, we will cherish it." Eric was stunned. "Women, huh?" The hunter whistled loudly, teasing him. "Why are you hiding such a pretty face like this?" The young girl, another man, smiled grimly. "Oh my God, no. Thinking I'm lucky to have such a wonderful experience here." As soon as the man finished speaking, a swift figure drew a sword. The target, the sword pointed right at the hunter's foul mouth. With a beard and mustache, that body moved as fast as the wind. The hunter barely had time to react. He had just finished laughing when he saw the sword right in front of him. His smile suddenly froze. The young man holding the sword said grimly, "You've offended the lady by speaking like that. Pay for your crime with your life." Isabelle shouted from the other side, ordering Chen to lower his weapon. Sitting aside, watching Mephi tried so hard not to laugh that he trembled. Even Eric felt sorry for the hunter. How dare he flirt with a noble? Does that head even contain a brain? Then something flickered behind the snow-covered forest, making both Eric and Mephi turn their heads back at the same time. Eric sensed something terrible approaching. His eyes lit up with a gloomy, extreme surprise. On the other side, Chen argued, "But lady, these bastards." Isabelle was very displeased with Chen's unilateral action. She repeated the order to lower the sword. Chen turned to look at her, his eyes showing some reluctance, but ultimately obeyed and sheathed his sword. At that moment, Eric suddenly stood up and shouted loudly, "Everyone run!" Chen turned to look at him, confused about what was happening. The hunter who had just escaped death was stunned. What? But it was too late because his body had already been pierced by several bullets. Seeing this, Eric bent down and raised his sword to block instinctively. Immediately after, his sword successfully blocked the sudden barrage of bullets coming from afar. Manhwa and the boys' tribe stared in terror. The hunter who was shot through the body earlier fell down. The surviving comrades were terrified. Blink of an eye, Chen blocked a long-range attack. His whole body trembled from the strong aftershock. He immediately ordered to protect the lady. The knights all stood up and surrounded Isabelle, trembling with fear, not knowing what had just attacked them. Eric frowned. This reminded him of the nest. A gust of wind blowing in signaled an ambush. Sure enough, a volley of spears and arrows shot toward them, making Eric exclaim, "Why are there so many?" The sound of arrows slicing through the air whistled past his ear, aiming straight at him. The large arrows and spears got closer and closer. Near Eric, there was nowhere to hide. He swung his hand forward and chanted a blocking spell. A shield formed from many hexagonal shapes, looking like a honeycomb, appeared in front of Eric, stopping the thick arrows from the enemy. He was fine. Then he turned around to check the situation. How were the others? On Isabelle's side, a group of 4 knights took turns repelling the arrows, but Manhwa's group was not so lucky. They were just guides and herb gatherers without skills to protect themselves. They only screamed for help when they saw their comrades fall. Help me, but no one stood up to protect them. Only fresh blood spread from the fallen comrades. Seeing this, Eric furrowed his brows tightly while Mephi appeared indifferent, as if this was a very normal thing. At that moment, there was a loud explosion behind the pine trees halfway up the mountain. Being a spirit, Mephi did not suffer any damage. He smirked. "Those fools are from the Blood-Eye tribe." Eric quickly used his special eyes to scout how many enemies there were. In his eyes, spots of light appeared behind the forest. He had heard that snow people usually traveled in packs of 10, but the number of light spots was more than 10, and they were approaching quite fast. They rushed forward and suddenly appeared in front of the group. Eric was terrified. This was way too many. On hurriedly commanded to wipe them out. The snow people, with their large bodies, excelled in close combat, not to mention their numbers were enough to overwhelm the group. On struggled to dodge attacks from many snow people. Mephi excitedly said, "The first battle is already pretty tough, huh?" Eric quietly called Mephi, but he didn't listen and kept babbling. "You're starting to feel scared now that it's time to fight, huh? Humans are really annoying." Eric was annoyed and silenced him with a spell. Just a small magic, yet the omnipotent demon king was silenced. He coldly said, "This is not the time for nonsense. I guess the demon king is a bit unconscious, huh?" Eric observed the trend and couldn't help but silently praise. "We have to admit they are incredibly amazing." His eyes lit up as he found a great counterattack opportunity. And he swung his sword. The blade passed through the snowmen like an illusion. Blood rain poured down. Eric marveled. This is how a knight optimizes his aura. He turned his head to look elsewhere. Although he wanted to admire more, this was not the right time. The snowmen were carrying out an ambush. It was truly a problem. But that was not all. There were more of them in the distance. In Eric's eyes, he saw many other glimmers. Another group of snowmen was waiting for the chance to ambush us. Everyone could be in danger if a wrong decision was made at this moment. However, the story would change if he struck them first. He crouched and jumped up. The powerful jump shattered the ground beneath his feet as he leapt high. Eric had discarded his handsome, tanned, cool appearance. Discarded the transformation. Immediately after, he cast another spell to arm himself. As he finished speaking, a pair of wings sprouted on Eric. He flew far away, leaving Chen's group to handle the battlefield. Over here. It seems that using memory to record some enhancement spells has proven useful. From above, he easily saw another aggressive group of snowmen moving toward them. They stopped to rest. Suddenly, one snowman noticed him. Something descended from above. Eric dove down onto it, still somewhat worried inside, although he wasn't sure if his attack would work. But he did it anyway. A foot with strong force stomped down on the snowman's head. Eric successfully landed on its head, causing it a fatal brain injury. His sudden appearance caused the remaining snowmen to panic greatly, yet Eric remained unshaken. At least he could slow them down, just as the snowmen hadn't reacted yet. He continued to unleash a move with a loud explosion. A catastrophic blast erupted, blowing away several nearby snowmen. Then Eric landed on the ground. His sharp eyes glanced at the remaining snowmen. Seeing them approach, he cast a spell to ignite flames rising from his feet, burning the snowmen before him. Crackling sounds rang in his ears. Immediately after, the air froze, forming sharp ice shards. They kept multiplying as if they had life. Finally, those ice shards transformed into sharp ice swords descending from the sky. Following Eric's command, the surviving snowmen, unable to react, had to face his attack again. Eric struck down, controlling the piercing ice swords. A dull collision sound echoed as countless ice swords flew into the snowmen. Eric danced like a ghost. Wherever he jumped, an unlucky snowman fell. The sharp ice swords pierced through the snowmen's bodies, leaving them dismembered. When Eric's feet touched the ground again, only 2 snowmen remained. Trembling like crazy, he exhaled. "Only 2 left, huh?" Seeing them inching backward, Eric turned his head and glared. "Where do you think you're running?" He smiled slyly and slightly twitched 2 fingers to bind them. After defeating countless snowmen, Eric knelt on the snow panting. "I'm pretty good, huh?" He tied up one snowman to question it while he had the chance. "Let's talk." He turned to call the demon, "Come here, Mephi." Eric had forgotten he had just silenced him. Mephi was very angry and could only mumble, showing he was still nearby. Eric smiled and snapped his fingers to lift the silence spell. "Still here, so let's talk a bit." Once free to speak, Mephi started cursing. "You bastard!" Before he could finish, Eric warned him to shut up. Mephi wanted to continue cursing, but swallowed his anger. Eric calmly ordered, "No time, so translate for me quickly." Mephi looked confused. "What are you saying?" Eric pointed at the tied snowman. "Tell me where your tribe is and I'll spare you." So Mephi communicated with the snowman. Then he told it to ask to be untied. Eric laughed and replied, "Sure, I trust him." Mephi seriously looked at him, advising that in this situation, negotiation through dialogue was better than threats. Eric snapped his fingers and laughed, untying the snowman. There, I'm letting him go. Now tell us. Next, Mephi continued the conversation in the snowmen's language. The two whispered for a long time as if plotting something. Then both turned to look at Eric with unfriendly eyes. Say Nora Mephi has bad intentions. He translated his words. We have a one-sided conversation as follows. Now we will pretend to cooperate with this bastard. Eric felt something was wrong, so he called out, Sir! The snowman reneged, angrily shouting and wanting to attack him. Then there was a loud noise as Eric raised his finger and shot an ice block at the snowman's head. His finger hovered in midair, completely a natural reflex. Eric breathed a sigh of relief. That was almost a big problem. He glared at Phi and the snowman. Both trembled as if they had just done something bad. Eric smiled harmlessly with a warning tone. So let's talk again. In the snowy mountain, the sunlight gradually appeared, signaling a new day had come. The conversation between the snowman and Mephi echoed through the forest. Finally, the snowman left in a state with its upper body tied. Eric followed it and criticized Mephi. That gullible snowman almost died because of you, sir. He turned to thank the snowman. Thank you for showing the way for me. Mephi outwardly sent a heart emoji, but inwardly cursed, you all deserve to die. The snowy wind blew past Eric's body, making him shiver. He placed his hand on his chest inside, which was a heart beating rapidly, the dragon heart containing the magic of both dragon and demon king. He could only exert 3% of the magic power from it. If he exerted the entire strange magic power, his body would not withstand and would explode. At this moment, the snowman, with its hands tied in front, arrived. The clan had reached their destination. They stood before a snowman village with a giant stone gate. Eric thought with his current level it was really dangerous to keep fighting as before. He clenched his fist tightly but could not step back. Carrying great ambitions, Eric bravely stepped forward. If he had given up just like that, how could he build a clan? He glanced back again. Looking at the clear blue sky, he wondered if that noble young lady would be safe and sound. Elsewhere, blood splattered everywhere. Chen gasped for breath after a long, exhausting battle. Not only him, but also his teammates. They had just eliminated a group of snowmen and were now resting. Isabelle hurriedly ran to Chen. Did you see anyone just here? Chen wiped the blood off his face, thinking to himself that the person probably died while running away alone or was hiding somewhere. But when he turned to answer Isabelle, he smiled. Maybe he escaped safely. The girl slightly frowned, her gaze distant. Probably, huh? She paid no attention to Chen's affectionate gaze toward her. Isabelle's purple eyes reflected worry. Troubled and anxious, she remembered the green eyes of that young man. Please be safe. At this moment, Eric had entered the Snowman clan's village and was being blocked by them. He was a bit hesitant, but clearly stated his request. Don't look at me so bloodthirstily. Let me meet the clan chief. He didn't know if the snowmen understood. At least they didn't attack, but the hostile look remained. Suddenly, a loud shout came from behind. Get out of the way! The snowmen heard and obediently made a path. Heavy footsteps sounded from behind. A large shadow approached. Eric looked up and swallowed nervously. The Snowman clan chief. Taller than other snowmen, he was like a small mountain standing before Eric. Trying to stay calm, Eric said, I have a few things to ask. The clan chief growled, but neither answered nor attacked. Eric's hand hidden inside his cloak was always ready to strike a fatal blow. It would be better if he didn't have to go this far, but if talking failed, then this was the fastest way to defeat this clan chief. In the tense moment, he heard the clan chief speak. His green eyes looked at Eric and asked, What is your name? Suddenly, he spoke very politely. This made Eric react a bit slowly. Eric Merbinger. The Snowman clan chief looked quite fierce with scars all over his body. After hearing Eric's name, he was silent for a moment, then said, Follow me. This unexpected friendliness surprised Eric, leaving a question mark in his heart. A moment later, the clan chief led Eric forward. The snowman guards followed at a distance behind. While walking, he told Eric, Our tribe has a legend. Eric was curious, what legend? He said that long ago a great king ruled this mountain. This made Eric's human side suddenly shrink in astonishment. He immediately looked back at Mephi, who nodded slightly at him. The Snowman clan chief ignored Eric's small gesture. He continued, That king said only one person was recognized as a friend by him, the person with green eyes and named Merbinger. Eric went from one surprise to another. He thought to himself, My clan's ancestor was friends with the Snowman king. The clan chief continued, Our clan chiefs continue managing their house according to the king's wish. Eric squinted and asked where that house was. The Snow Tribe chief stopped and looked in one direction. There 2 people had arrived. A cliff in front was a deep abyss, the Snow Tribe chief signaled to Eric. Looking down below, he bowed his head to look down, wondering if there was a house under this cliff. The mountain wind blew up from below with a whoosh. The dark abyss was gloomy. Eric squinted, trying to find the silhouette of the house. Below the abyss, there were no lights. Only by looking carefully could one see a very small house. It was crazy. There really was a house down there. Suddenly, Eric became a bit cautious because he sensed something. A cold wind blew up from below. The abyss surprised him. The aura increased. The Snow Tribe chief shared, once a year when the wind weakens we go down there. But no one has ever returned. Mephi hovered nearby, teasing, "With so much magic, how come it can't be unraveled at all?" Eric was silent, not speaking. He silently looked down. How does Mephi tease like that? "No one has had enough skill yet." Eric nodded as if talking to himself. "That's right. It's really reckless, given my current skill. However, if I just stand here now, I won't be able to take another step," he said as he stepped forward a few steps. "Besides, it seems the ancestors want to see the skills of their descendants, the Snow Tribe chief." "Strange, what do you intend to do?" Eric decisively leapt into the abyss. He smiled brightly. "I have to meet their expectations." Watching Eric leap and fall freely down below, Mephi shouted, "That crazy guy is really jumping down like that." The cold wind blew into his face, making Eric unable to smile anymore. Damn, the wind here is stronger than he thought. Mephi could normally fly, so he wasn't afraid. On the contrary, he could even act superior and lecture that crazy guy. "Focus or you'll die." Eric began to put his legs down and change his falling posture. It was working. Just one more step. He gritted his teeth and concentrated he could reach it. Looking at the house far below, he silently urged himself to land. Falling at lightning speed, the house gradually became clear. But before falling face first, the magic of stepping on air was activated immediately. Eric skillfully jumped down in a Z shape to reduce resistance. When falling finally, he landed on the snow ground with a loud impact, causing the thick snow to burst up. Eric landed on the snowy field looking extremely cool. Snow fell gently, quite poetic. But the next second, the cool image shattered. He fell back, lying on the snow, complaining, "I really thought I was dead." After a while, Eric sat up and asked himself and answered, "I did it, didn't I?" "That's right, isn't it?" "Do you admit that?" "I admit it." Mephi was speechless indeed. Eric stood up, looking at the house in front. Although it looked very ordinary, it looked like a thatched hut. He stepped forward, reaching to open the door to enter. However, a magic circle appeared, preventing anyone from invading this house. Eric was surprised. It seemed to be locked by ancient magic. He suggested you try inputting mana and chanting. Mephi thought, then gave a suggestion. Merging, Eric used his hand to channel mana and recited countless spells. Demon Path, famous sect, Demon King, Demon Hunter Tribe, Entrusted Squirrel, Eating Cake, Story Bird, DJI Dinosaur. After many failed attempts, he started to think mana was not right, something similar to a key. Suddenly, a thought flashed through Eric's mind. Could it be? He took the 4-petal flower pendant, nervously brought it close to the door. The pendant was brought near the magic circle. The barrier began to spin. Light flashed on the pendant, almost absorbing the protective barrier of the house. The door creaked open. Eric exclaimed, "It really fooled me." Stepping inside the house looked small, but was not small. He was almost overwhelmed by the treasure trove of books left by the ancestors. He walked around, selecting a few books to read. But just seeing the book titles, Eric's eyes widened. He excitedly ran around the library under Mephi's annoyed gaze. Basic Principles of Magical Theory. There were also magic of elves and beasts. There was even dark magic. All kinds of books were here. Mephi looked around and evaluated a bit. It seemed this was the residence of a great master. Hearing that, Eric stuck his head out to ask who the great master was. Mephi felt a bit speechless at his ignorance, but he didn't know Eric was thinking silently. That person and the king of the Snow Tribe knew our ancestors, and it seemed there was a hidden story behind that. Suddenly, Eric's eyes collided with a book. This book! He took it out and looked at the cover titled History of Merbinger. Curious, he opened the book and read, "Our family's mission is to destroy demons." An image flashed briefly in his mind. This is exactly like the content Eric had seen in his dream. He temporarily set aside the dream and continued reading the book. But some parts of the book were blackened and a bit hard to read. What is this? This part is definitely conditional. The mission assigned by heaven to the family can be accomplished. When Eric read this information, the letters from the book began to flow out, swallowing demons and then swallowing devils, if it could be digested properly. Would there be a new harmony of the demonic path? Silent and breathless, a powerful energy poured out from the book originating from the letters. Eric's eyes lit up green. Phrases with directive meaning hovered in his mind. Eat demons, swallow demons, drink demons. Suddenly a cracking sound rang out. The pendant showed signs of cracking but did not break. Instead, it shed its skin, becoming bright like a precious jewel. Eat, swallow, drink demons. The black gem in the middle of the pendant, like a projector, emitted a flickering light. Countless images flashed before Eric's eyes and beside his ears. These were the pieces of information read from the book. If so, all demons would be contained within the person. Like this, a new sorcerer would appear, the first descendant to swallow demons and solve the arrangement as well as the test of the demonic path. From now on, it will completely begin. Eric lost consciousness. When he woke up, he found himself lying on lush green grass. He blinked, trying to find a familiar feeling. Where is this? Eric sat up suddenly and heard a voice from behind. It seemed he was the descendant in a distant future. Promise to receive our arrangement. A man clasped his hands behind Eric. The wind blew through his blonde hair. Eric turned his head to look back. The man smiled slightly, wearing golden glasses. Along with a beard, Eric did not dare act rashly and cautiously asked, "Who are you?" The other placed his hand on his chest and introduced himself, Otto von Merbinger. He seriously said he was the guide and tester of the descendants. The guide is me, Otto. Han Merbinger was the one who established the demonic magic system of the Merbinger family hundreds of years ago. Over many generations, only a few ancestors could become the family's renowned masters. And he was the ancestor who became the renowned master. Otto smiled kindly. It seems you know me. Eric hesitated and asked, could it be that the ancestor is the Great Eastern Master? Otto was slightly surprised. This matter? None of my descendants know this alias. Where did you hear that? Eric looked aside but saw no sign of Mephi. Still, he honestly replied, that was what Demon King Mephisto said. Where is that name now? Otto was surprised. Mephisto is the Demon King of Original Sin. Eric nodded. Ah, yes, just a foolish demon. Otto laughed heartily and patted Eric's shoulder. The first demon you swallowed was Mephisto Flash, huh? He was very pleased. The talented descendant has truly arrived. Should I increase the difficulty of the challenge? At the same time, Mephisto Felix was still in the library. He scratched his ear irritably and cursed, "Who dares insult the king?" It's packed tight with limbs. Back to Eric, he politely raised his hand and asked, what is this arrangement? You said you would guide me. Otto rubbed his head. You're curious about many things, aren't you? He smiled kindly. You can freely take notes. The rest can be left for later. Why rush to know complicated matters? Eric shyly nodded. His politeness made Otto even more fond of him. Why be so shy? He spread his hand and condensed magic. A white circle resembling a wheel appeared. Otto said, We have prepared something like a magic wheel. He began to use magic and explained. If it starts spinning once it cannot be stopped, therefore I do not casually give it to anyone. No matter how long it takes, I must thoroughly test the descendant, he said. Because you have passed my test, from now on the choice is yours. Otto raised the magic wheel before Eric and gave him two options. Stop the magic wheel or let it spin. After speaking, the magic wheel was handed to Eric. In his astonishment, he did not know what the family's arrangement was. If he took the wrong path, his life might disappear. Eric clenched his hand, crushing the magic wheel. So this was the last chance to escape Otto. Thought he would choose to stop it. Otto was a bit sad, but still polite. All right, I will respect your choice. Unexpectedly, Eric said he would build the sect. These words made Otto slightly stunned when he heard him say he would continue the wishes of the ancestors. The great heroes left their names on this land. Like a great mage, Eric recalled the statue honoring the ancestors he once saw. His eyes shone with determination as he spread his hand. In his hand was the magic wheel. That was the dream he had cherished for a long time. He began to spin the wheel, letting it roll freely forward. Loud explosions sounded every time the wheel collided and changed direction. Ansang tied his eyes flickering in front of the two people. Otto saw this scene. He was deeply moved. He slapped Eric's shoulder excitedly and praised, Very good, this boldness. If you are our descendant, you will be able to do it. Eric protested, Ouch, sir. On the green meadow, the wind rustled. Otto spoke in a commanding tone. Then he reached out his hand. The warm green meadow of spring suddenly turned into the cold, snowy mountain of winter. Seeing the cold wind blowing fiercely, Eric suddenly turned to look back. The weather changed 180 degrees. The cold wind made Eric shiver. Where is this? Otto seemed unaffected by the weather. He shared, "This is the place to test the first fate arrangement." Two teeth clicked together, breath puffing out smoke. Eric arranged his thoughts. So he would have to take the test here. Eric suddenly felt excited and smiled. If so, compared to now, maybe I will become much stronger. Otto also smiled. You're smiling. For someone about to take a test, this mindset is very good. He pointed far away, then look over there. Eric didn't understand what he was told to look at. Otto guided him further, look deeper. Eric obeyed and looked intently into the distance. Gradually, he saw a shadow lurking in the darkness. It was a horn peeking out in the distant darkness. The figure gradually became clearer. A creature with two sharp horns and white fur stained with blood. Eric wondered, what is that? Otto introduced the Snow Mountain King. He is the first and also the last figure to unite the snow tribes and is the king ruling the snowy mountains. This is a character with ambition to bring the snow people who were driven out by the demon tribe back to the demon tribe once again. But in the end, he was swallowed by his own ambition and left as a fallen demon. Eric turned pale when Otto said, "This Snow Mountain King is the second demon you must swallow." He turned his head to look at him, trembling, pointing in that direction. "So that means I have to face that?" Otto corrected. "No, more precisely, you have to swallow it. Are you scared already? Now you will have to swallow the demon and take its root seal." Eric heard the word root seal for the first time. Seal, Otto explained. The primitive and dark emotions like fear, depression, and resentment emitted by creatures are existence created from the ego originating from the forethoughts. The dark thoughts of the self link together to form that. That is the demon tribe. Therefore, each demon has its own dark thoughts, which are their nature, class, and symbol. The heart that stores those dark thoughts is called the seal. The original sin seal of Mephisto Felix can be seen. On Eric's hand appeared the demon's mark. Now he realized this was the demon king's seal. While Eric was admiring Mephisto's seal on his hand, Otto's voice echoed in his ear. "From now on, you will hunt the demon tribe and seize their root seals." He stepped forward and patted Eric's shoulder. "If you can swallow the demon, all their power will belong to you." These words added motivation to Eric. He looked at the Snow Tribe King in the distance. How strong will he become? If he obtains the power of a formidable monster, then... Eric swallowed nervously. You have to try first to know. He began to use mana and chant spells to fly up. Otto's voice was still reminding him, remember this. Eric continued to activate combat skills and armed himself. Otto reminded him not to defeat. Eric was now flying toward the Snow Tribe King, his fist ready. Otto's voice echoed in his ear, swallow. These words made Eric a bit annoyed. No, but what do you mean by eat and swallow? What does that mean? Deep in the black mist, a shadow moved. The Snow Tribe King croaked. Is this mana power Mephisto gave Merbinger? It reminds me of Mephisto's face. There was a bit of anticipation. Prove it. On the contrary, O2 slightly frowned when he saw Eric's action stop in the distance as he was rushing forward. Suddenly a voice rang out. Our Marshal Eric keenly saw something ahead. He slightly stopped to dodge countless sudden attacks from the enemy. There was a loud shout, "Kill them!" A rumbling sound echoed. A foot appeared amidst the pure white snow. From the black misty horns, the foot stepped out, freezing the white snow layer. Countless horned warriors wearing iron masks appeared. Holding sharp spears and gloomy steel shields, they blocked the path. Eric swallowed hard. These king's protectors looked like at least 10 warriors at some level. They were different from the snowmen he had faced before, especially that one. The leader with Eric's current power, could he possibly win? If he only used the original Sin Seal with the Demon King's power, Eric was confident he could even capture the Snow Mountain King. But a drop of sweat fell as he thought, damn it, if he didn't know how to use it, it would be like drawing nonsense, not giving Eric much time to think. The warrior shouted loudly and charged. He thought silently, but since this was the first test with the Demon King's power, it wouldn't be cheating. The original Sin Seal lit up. A fireball condensed and exploded. Eric pointed at the charging warriors and boom, a deafening explosion rang out. The big blast blinded eyes and heat waves spread from the side. However, the result Eric hoped for did not happen. He squinted at the sharp spear tip stopping right in front of him. The battle's outcome came too quickly. He was stunned, unable to believe it. The warriors were incredibly fast. In a flash, they had thrown spears right in front of Eric. Completely dodging the explosion he created, Eric was only slightly shaken. Immediately after, he swung his right hand from left to right and his left hand from above downward, stabbing forward. Instantly, countless sharp ice pillars rose up, blocking in front of Eric, making it difficult for the warriors. Some warriors who couldn't dodge were immediately dealt with on the spot. Eric was cold, letting blood splatter around him. But soon the warriors broke through his ice wall. Eric spoke calmly. "I heard you once belonged to the demon tribe but were abandoned, so I'm sure you know that when you're weak you will be discarded." Hearing this, the warriors were furious, grinding their teeth and glaring at the approaching warriors. He told himself he had to be stronger. The warriors were getting closer. If he could be stronger this kind of challenge... Eric spread his 5 fingers in front of him as if preparing to chant a spell. Filled with determination to overcome the challenge, he would smash it 100 times if needed. With one thought, Eric summoned a gigantic fireball. The heat blazed throughout the snowy mountain space. The fireball exploded light, engulfing the entire screen. At the same time, it seemed to burn everything the sparks touched. Then the next moment, a beam of light repelled the fireball's sparks. The snow warrior passed through the sea of fire, swinging his weapon at Eric. The attack was so strong that Eric suffered internal injuries, spewing blood with a loud sound, causing the snow where Eric stood to explode. Then his body fell backward, a bloody slash on his belly. Eric glanced at the warrior who just attacked him, cursing inwardly, "Damn it!" His body was heavy, falling onto the snow. Eric struggled to crawl up, coughing heavily. Watching the warrior coming through the mist, he silently lamented that at this rate he would lose. He gritted his teeth. His breath turned into swirling dark blue-black gas around him. No, he couldn't fall at the first challenge. Eric braced his hands on the ground, trying to stand up. The dark blue-black gas thickened. Though his body could no longer endure, he tensed up and energy surged out more and more. The snowy area where Eric stood immediately shattered from the energy. Eric did not hesitate to face the strong warrior in front of him. He gritted his teeth silently, promising to draw more energy. The warrior squinted but said nothing, so no one knew what he was thinking. Suddenly, he swung his sword. Eric quickly bent down to dodge, opening his eyes wide and starting to chant a spell from his heart. Like a comet's tail in the dark night, a ray of light streaked by that was Eric moving at the speed of sound. In an instant, he pierced through the warrior's body. With a roar, the warrior's body exploded on the spot. Using too much strength made Eric a bit tired. He panted heavily. Black energy like smoky mist spilled out of his body. Exhausted, Eric collapsed onto the ground. Black bones floated behind him in the sky. He squinted, smiled, and breathed a sigh of relief. Then he sensed a difference. Eric opened his eyes slightly and exclaimed, "Is this real?" You see the black bones like ink stains on a watercolor painting, blaming with one sentence. No matter how you look at it, the first round was already too harsh. The black bones began to gather to one side. Eric felt something was wrong. Damn it, his heart felt like it was about to explode. The soldiers started to take shape again. What should he do? But no soldiers took shape. Only black bones surged forward. Eric, confused, raised his hand to block them. However, what responded to him was a stream of dark blue bones gently landing on his hand. Eric looked down at his right arm in disbelief. This was a seal. The black bones still kept flooding into his body. Eric evaluated the new seal. Although it was fainter than the ancestral seal, it was definitely a new seal created. He wasn't sure what was happening, but the energy of the dragon heart was about to explode. Now it had stabilized. At this moment, the car spoke up, and that was why the demons called their seals by their true names. So if you want to use their power, then you must know their true names. Eric wondered how he could find out. There's no way they would tell you their names. The car didn't share a polite way to ask. It just said, "Don't worry. When the right time comes, you will naturally feel it." And right now, Eric faced a new group of warriors taking shape. He closed his eyes, sensing the newly gathered energy. Eric raised his hand, creating a white energy circle like snow. The true name of the snowmen was Cruel. A cold snowflake left his hand, although he couldn't explain it. The snowy wind around blew stronger than ever. Eric only knew this. He squinted, telling himself the way to use the seal. The place where he was facing the challenge was a cold, snowy mountain. In front of him, the group of warriors charged forward, and what was their true name? The wind howled fiercely by his ear. He muttered, wishing them to be cold and ruthless. A white-blue energy of snow radiated in all directions, scattering the approaching warriors. But then, they quickly condensed their forms amid the cold wind. This time, they were more careful, using shields to block in front, preparing to continue the attack. However, that was useless, because the next second, they were hit by a massive snow explosion shaking the earth. Standing on the ice in the shape of a snowflake, Eric breathed heavily, using a bit too much energy. Yet he could still smile. The snowflake beneath Eric was like a barrier protecting him. Any creature intending to approach was shattered by ice and snow. He was surprised. Was this the power of the seal? To test further, he enlarged the snowflake under his feet. The icy power surged continuously, scattering many warriors. Countless warriors fell, and Eric's breathing grew heavier. He looked at the remaining warrior on the battlefield. Now only you were left. Just as he finished speaking, an incident happened. A warning, a sign. Eric suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fell down. Before losing consciousness, only one question was in his mind. Why? A piercing scream echoed in the vast space. Eric clutched his neck, sitting up, gasping, drenched in sweat. Now he was back in the library inside the building. Because the ancestors left books scattered on the shelves, Eric was horrified, recalling what had just happened. Mage appeared beside him, praising, "Looks like you passed a pretty tough challenge." He looked at him and softly called Mage. Eric sat up, still unsettled. Mage continued, "I hoped the mission would be activated because you fell asleep when your pendant lit up. It seems the morning won't be that easy." Hearing that, Eric was stunned. The mission. So he wasn't really dead. He touched the tattoo on his arm, having trusted the seal too quickly. He must have fainted after absorbing all the mana. Recalling what happened, Eric sighed. But its power was much stronger than he thought. If the incomplete seal of cruelty was that strong, then how powerful was the original sin seal? But how was Eric supposed to use them? Suddenly, Mage spoke, making him pay attention. Could it be the seal of cruelty? He frowned, crossing his arms. It seemed the winter solstice sage had devised a rather strange plot. Eric sat upright. He sincerely asked Mage, "How do I use the seal of cruelty?" Mage replied, "I guess he told you my true name. He mocked you, thinking I would tell you." Mage still held deep resentment against him. "No matter how much you insult me, you will never get anything from me." Eric scratched his head. "I'm just asking." "Come on, no need to be so twisted," Mage ignoring him as he turned away. Eric thought to himself he knew he would say that. After all, seals are the most important thing to demons. If Mephisto agrees to let you use the original sin seal, it means the most important thing to him. Has been stolen, which is unfortunate. But now you won't touch it. Don't think too much about this. Eric pulled his sleeve down to cover the seal on his hand. Above all, the original sin seal is the seal of the Demon King. Right now, you still can't control his power. Tuye does not. There's no way you can control the Demon King's power. Eric changed his tone excitedly and asked Mephi, "You said you know the Snow Mountain King, right?" Mephi seemed annoyed. "Why are you suddenly asking me about that?" He replied, "This place is his tomb and it seems I have to capture him." Mephi thought he must have misheard. "Huh, Otto Hammerbinger, I know you're crazy. But how dare he order something like you to capture an entity recognized by me?" Eric looked at him and asked directly, "So do you know any good way about that?" His gaze made him a bit scared. Mephi chose to avoid the question. "No." Eric did not give up and stepped closer, trying to persuade him. "He is no longer part of the demon tribe. At least tell me that much, won't you?" Mephi got angry. "What are you talking about?" "Revealing the secret of the seal includes the secrets and weaknesses of their tribe. Isn't that the same?" After he finished speaking, Eric made a condition 3 days without messing around. Mephi closed his eyes and ignored him. "Do you think you can humble my pride that way?" Eric continued bargaining, holding up 5 fingers for 5 days. Mephi clenched his teeth angrily. "You continue to underestimate me." Seeing him angry, Eric gave up. "Fine, then." Mephi immediately changed his tone to contemptuous. "But because my tolerance is as vast as the ocean this time, I will let it slide." Eric laughed mockingly. Just for 5 days without messing around? Mephi was embarrassed, clearing his throat to hide his awkwardness, then became serious. "Listen carefully. With the seal you currently have in your hand, forget about completing the mission. You can't even get close to the Snow Mountain King?" Eric guessed Mephi's meaning and continued, "But..." He smiled smugly, showing his bright white teeth. "That means there's no way." A moment later, back to the cold, snowy mountain in the challenge, Eric complained, "It's freezing to death. This is why I didn't come back." Looking at the Snow Mountain King in the black mist, he muttered, "But it seems I have to use the hint Mephisto gave me." After finishing, he crouched and dashed forward, remembering Mephi's words. "Improve your rank." Eric did not hesitate to charge forward, fighting the warriors created by the Snow Mountain King. Seals can be divided into common, advanced, precious, unique, and legendary based on their rarity. There is also something called rank achievement. It can lead to different power levels even within the same rank. Thanks to experience from before, he quickly dodged the warrior's moves. The seal of evil is precious. Surely it is not a mediocre rank, but Eric's achievement rank is only 1 star. The warriors kept attacking, somewhat showing the power of their creator. On the other hand, the Snow Mountain King's seal had been cultivated to 10 stars. So Eric was forced to raise his achievement rank to 10 stars, or upgrade his rank to unique. He smiled, his fighting spirit stimulated. His achievement rank was only 1 star, so he did not hesitate to defeat all devour, all turning defeated generals into his own strength. Not knowing how much time had passed, the snow fell thicker. A foot slowly stepped on the white snow. Eric endured the cold, his voice slightly hoarse from the cold. Finally, we meet Snow Mountain King. Looking at the strong existence before him, he sighed silently. No matter how many warriors he defeated, his achievement rank was stuck at 2 stars. In other words, Eric had to face the Snow Mountain King to increase his achievement rank. When he discovered but that green bean was not a shadow. It was the entire energy of a demon. After all, when alive, what kind of entity was the opponent to be so strong? Eric said to Otto, "You want me to defeat that?" Otto gave a thumbs up to encourage him. "It's okay, you won't die. Are you still scared? Are you really the respected ancestor of our family?" "He is not an enemy, not at all hostile to us." Saying that, but still had to complete the challenge. The wind and snow blew fiercely on the white snowy plateau. Eric was determined, anyway I'll try. It would be difficult, but if he kept trying, he was ready and sure he could win. A moment later in the library, Mayfie was slightly startled looking over because he saw Eric had woken up. His face froze for a few seconds, then he lay flat on the ground laughing at himself. Eric was frustrated after collecting all the seals. After working, he wanted to kick off his pants, but died instantly. "How can I fight and win this?" Mayfie saw him fail and gleefully advised, "So now you understand. Just give up on that mission." Eric ignored it and kept muttering, "However, if I get the seal from that entity..." He sat up and stared at Mayfie, making him shiver in fear. "That bastard is at it again." Suddenly, Eric asked a question. "Right. This is a bit abrupt. Tuyet Sun Vuong is a woman, right?" Mayfie was startled. Without receiving an answer from him, Eric continued staring at Mayfie. He didn't dare to look into Eric's eyes. His face was pale and seemed apprehensive. Mayfie was silent for a while, realizing Eric's unusual gaze. He glanced sideways. "Huh." He saw Eric's inquisitive look as if saying, "I already know." Mayfie suddenly felt a chill down his spine. "Why are you looking at me like that? What's with your eyes?" "Damn." Seeing his overreaction, Eric chuckled silently. "You understand now, there's something between Tuyet Sun Vuong and Mephisto. You will gradually uncover it." Holding the transformed pendant in his hand, he arranged the mission immediately. The more important task was to devour Tuyet Sun Vuong. Placing the pendant between both hands, he continued to initiate the challenge, though he still didn't know how. But the light from the pendant flashed. Eric would figure it out if he defeated her. Entering the challenge space, Eric rushed forward and shouted, "Die!" But before he could do anything, the icebone pen struck him. His body froze instantly, looking like a beautiful sculpture. However, in this situation, no one would see it as a masterpiece. This time, Eric froze to death. After that countless times, he was eliminated in 101 different ways, split in half, slashed across the body. Organs cut out, head lost, legs and arms severed in various ways. In his mind, there was only one thought. "It hurts so much my head is about to explode." But he didn't give up. Eric was very stubborn and kept trying to break through. Despite the cold numbness covering his body after many attempts, he finally managed to repel Tuyet Sun Vuong's attack. Gradually, he got closer little by little. Finally, Eric saw her face. Tuyet Sun Vuong roared fiercely. She seemed to lose all reason and charged at him. Eric didn't flinch. Now he had seen her. The cruel use of the seal by Tuyet Sun Vuong. Although someone who just obtained the seal would find it hard to surpass one who has mastered its use, Tuyet Sun Vuong roared loudly. Recklessly rushing out of the black bones, Eric raised his hand to strike forward, silently telling himself he would overcome. His hand clashed with Tuyet Sun Vuong's. Habit, action, method theory, a small hand fighting a big hand. Spiritual energy surged, shockwaves spread from the impact. Slowly, water stains appeared on Eric's hand. Even when he had to seize everything from her, a loud ice magic explosion erupted, pushing both back. Ota stood on the high cliff watching the whole scene. He commented it wouldn't be surprising if Eric's ego collapsed if he kept dying slowly like this. Ota keenly noticed something unusual on Eric's face, but he was smiling. When the blinding explosion happened, Eric found an opportunity. He didn't just have innate talent. He had an unyielding will and an endless desire to perfect himself. Yes, that kid. Eric turned and chopped off Tuyet Son Vuong's arm. Otto remarked that Eric was the kind of person who would never appear, even in their family. The severed arm of Tuyet Son Vuong flew off. Black energy spilled out instead of blood. Because her whole body was demon energy, the hand quickly dissolved into energy and was absorbed by Eric, who took advantage of the opportunity. Even Oto had to sigh at this madman. Eric laughed heartily, very pleased. He had reached 3 stars. However, his joy was premature. Just a moment of carelessness, and the weapon in her hand swung before Eric's face. He quickly retreated, almost losing a leg. He struggled to block the blow. She didn't even give him time to breathe. Damn it, Tuyet Son Vuong changed stance. She grabbed the weapon's hilt and wrapped the pointed tip with a thick layer of ice. Eric was extremely shocked. He immediately crossed his arms in front of his body to form a defensive barrier, but Tuyet Son Vuong's direct attack was too powerful. How could a normal shield and barrier stop it? With a loud crack, the barrier shattered. Eric endured her storm-like attack, gritting his teeth and cursing, "Damn it! Is this your limit? Just robbing is not enough. Watching her swing the weapon down, you think to defeat the Snow Mountain King, you must understand her." Eric exhales smoke, denying his previous thought. "No, you must! You rush forward despite the demon energy striking at you. You conclude you must become her." Dense black bones pierce through Eric's body. The demon seal on your hand lights up as if accidentally activating some organ. Suddenly, Eric feels cold all over. His vision darkens. Am I dead? When opening his eyes again, he sees Mephisto floating in a blood-red sky. Proving it, Eric stares blankly at that irritating face. In his heart, 1,000 questions Mephisto. Why is Mephisto here? He looks at the Snow Mountain King kneeling on the ground, challenging, "Prove you are worthy to become part of our race." The Snow Mountain King. A strange feeling arises in Eric's heart. He realizes at this moment he is the Snow Mountain King in a respectful demon stance. He notices she also has a demon seal on her hand. Suddenly, the seal on the Snow Mountain King's hand lights up. Eric loses consciousness again. When he opens his eyes once more, he sees a strange face wearing a bone mask with a long white beard. The image gradually becomes clearer. He sees his own small hand covered with pure white fur. Eric screams inside, what on earth is happening? He hears the man say, "The demon god has granted us a prophet." He holds the Snow Mountain King firmly and declares loudly, "Our queen leader of the highland region." After finishing, the Snow Mountain King is lifted high. The small, lovely body stretches out its hand, waving adorably. Standing on a high cliff, the old man shouts, "This mountain range will be ours," and countless people below cheer in support. Suddenly, a female voice rings in Eric's ear. "I was born a king who will rule the Snow Mountain." He realizes this is the past of the Snow Mountain King. She recounts, "But I am the first to unify the tribes in the history of Snow Mountain." Not satisfied with just Snow Mountain. Obviously, the Snow Mountain King is an ambitious woman. She always has the urge to reclaim the former glory of the Snow People. Before the tribesmen, the Snow Mountain King boldly declares, "Listen to me. Because we were once part of the omnipotent demon race, once again we will return to our rightful place." Beyond Snow Mountain, she and the Snow People made countless humans and demons kneel before them. Wherever the Snow Mountain King went, slaughter and destruction followed. And eventually they became part of the demon race. More than that, she tried to become a demon king. However, her tribe failed. Even the Snow Mountain King had to kneel before one person, the demon king Mephisto falls. For demons, Mephi is the supreme existence, making all worship him, who is both arrogant and unpredictable, simply because he has the right to do so. The Snow Mountain King realizes the wall of the omnipotent demon king is too high. She can only taste the bitterness of defeat. Nevertheless, she never stopped and did everything just to polish her real name and strengthen her seal. Thus, the Snow Mountain King took the first step. Just a little more, and she could gain recognition from Mephisto Falls. But her memory shifts to a tall fortress wall. A familiar deep voice echoes to Eric. The Snow Mountain King had to face the great mages and warriors of humanity. She was blocked by a wall even steeper than anything she had faced before. In the memory of conquest and spreading fear of the Snow Mountain King, once she ordered her tribe to unleash all energy, but just after finishing, the person standing right behind her exploded into a spray of blood. The Snow Warrior died unexpectedly, something no one predicted. This death caused chaos in the ranks. A terrified scream echoed, "What?" A human warrior rushed forward, swinging his sword horizontally. He was not verbose. Successfully taking the snow warrior's life, a loud explosion blew away not just one, but countless snow warriors. The cries for help of the tribesmen echoed in the ears. "Snow Mountain King, save me, I don't want to die." The warriors, frightened, facing a powerful opponent, saw the one before them like an insurmountable mountain, making them have no choice but to bow their heads. "I want to live!" But before she could finish, a giant hand slammed down. Everything turned to dust. The surviving warriors trembled from the deep fear in their souls. Then a patterned axe of the Snow People was raised high, igniting hope in their hearts. The Snow Mountain King bravely grabbed the axe and stepped forward strongly. She shouted, "Calm down! We belong to the proud demon tribe. There is nothing we cannot accomplish. Let the enemies block our path. See the terror of us." Responding to her were the sounds of weapons stabbing into flesh. The sound of blood splattering Snow Mountain King stunned. Her face was covered in blood. Beside her ear were desperate screams. Her warriors had been almost completely wiped out. Only the Snow Mountain King remained alone, with the blood of her tribe smeared all over her face, and the one who just struck was the Merbinger car. Snow Mountain King and her snow tribe lost the battle. Resisting humans led by the car and were driven back to Snow Mountain. She was unwilling, continuously shouting, "Why?" The car expressed deep condolences to the Snow Mountain King. "Despite her crying and blaming humans, you all already have everything you want. You mean you won't allow us to have even one? Why do tears fall on the resolute face of the Snow Mountain King?" She cried for the fate of her tribe, also cried because her ambition was blocked. The seal on her hand lit up. The Snow Mountain King now returned to a demon energy form. Eric left the memory and stood facing her. His face showed sympathy. "This is you, seeing your own image from her body. Your mission, Eric, like a lost boy. Feeling each step, even if you are desperate." The Snow Mountain King, too. "She is lost in her own ambition. Even if you must endure," Eric recalled his childhood when life was hard. The Snow Mountain King also returned to her youth with countless hardships. "You reach out your small hand to reclaim glory for your tribe. Two kindred spirits finding each other, comforting each other, a great mission." After that day, the Han car stayed in Snow Mountain to watch over the Snow Mountain King, and after countless battles, the two gradually respected each other and stayed together quite a long time. But even so, the Snow Mountain King still could not let go of her obsession. "I must reclaim our former glory." She could not completely escape the temptation from her ambitions. Eventually becoming a monster, the car had to step in to stop her. Regardless of the long-standing friendship between the two, and the Snow Mountain King died by his hand. Finally, her memory truly ended. Eric slowly opened his eyes. Suddenly, he heard a woman's voice. "You must be a descendant far in the future." The Snow Mountain King spoke. She said he said so. She held the arm that Eric had severed earlier. Slightly smiling, "Seeing you destroyed part of my mana and even cut off one of my arms, seems he is not boasting." Eric pointed to her severed arm hesitantly. "I apologize for your arm." This made her slightly startled. The Snow Mountain King laughed, then moved sharply, causing her to moan softly in pain. She said, "Even though I ended up like this, because I cannot give up my ambition, I am still a king and also a warrior leading a tribe." The Snow Mountain King said coldly, "I do not need any pity from my enemies." This made Eric awaken. He never intended to pity her. The Snow Mountain King continued, "Now seems it is time to end this long battle, so I can apologize to my people and honor their sacrifices." Eric clenched his trembling hand, hearing her self-reproach. "Why was I greedy to join the demon tribe?" The demon energy silently swirled around the Snow Mountain King. "Just being happy with those I love is enough." The energy fluctuated violently. Eric sweated profusely. Finally, she was invaded by demon energy. He pondered what he should do now. Seeing her invaded by demon energy, Eric was only a little confused. He disciplined himself to stay alert. "Your opponent is the Snow Mountain King, the king who unified this giant snow mountain, and the greatest warrior of the Snow Tribe, and the enemy you must swallow even though she is now in a frenzy." Eric reached out using mana. "If you do not use all your strength to defeat her, it would be disrespectful to her abundant mana energy radiated from him." The Snow Mountain King in frenzy charged forward. "I will show you." Eric likewise. He charged forward to meet the great mission she established. Both rushed to attack each other. Magic collided and exploded between them. Eric's spiritual force surged like a tide, carrying the characteristic blue color of ice and snow, while the Snow Mountain King's spiritual force was corroded by demon energy and was red like blood. Two overlapping energies, like a classic Icefire toothpaste commercial, the axe carried the red-black energy of the Snow Mountain King. Descended once again. On Eric's side, he also restored an axe exactly the same. Only difference was it carried a cool blue energy boom. Two weapons clashed fiercely. Eric gritted his teeth, accepting the strong aftershock becoming her. The battle between the two erupted fiercely. Blue and red lights exploded with swirling strikes. Eric and the Snow Mountain King charged at each other dramatically. Neither gave way, it can be said. Both gave their all for this battle. The more they fought, the more intense. Eric suddenly thought it was strange. The Snow Mountain King stomped on the snow to gain momentum to spin. Eric did exactly the same. He assessed this was clearly a life-or-death battle. He almost copied every posture of the Snow Mountain King to fight poison with poison. Eric gritted his teeth and attacked, his eyes glowing. But why is this so enjoyable? She did not falter even more. Almost losing reason, attacking non-stop explosions roared deafeningly, rocks scattered everywhere. The aftershocks affected not only their battleground, but spread very far. The nearby mountain area was almost shattered. Rocks fell like early snow. If unlucky, getting hit on the head could likely cause death. But to these two, a little rock and dirt meant nothing. Trying to become the Snow Mountain King, Eric could feel the happy days she had with the car. The two were evenly matched, giving and receiving blows. The Snow Mountain King swung. Eric also raised to block when he borrowed force from some rocks to launch himself. She did the same. It can be said the two fought tirelessly, martial arts exchange to the point of bleeding after many energy collisions exploded. One foot jumped back to the left. Similarly, on the opposite side, one foot jumped back to the right. Shockwaves spread. Both temporarily stepped back a few steps, standing in a defensive stance. Eric was exhausted, panting hard, trying to grit his teeth to stay alert before the battle ended. The Snow Mountain King was no better. She gritted her teeth and endured. Violent energy in both of them. They had both reached their limits, so the battle would be decided by this final strike. Both simultaneously leapt up again. They wanted to determine the winner. With the technique that had made countless races kneel before them, the secret art of the Snow Mountain King. She concentrated energy into her hand, turning her hand into a palm. Eric nimbly imitated, also turning his hand into a palm, and boom, two palms collided. One big hand, one small hand. Ice-shattering palm as effective as an arrow. Within the affected area, ice and snow shattered. Shockwaves spread far. After the dust gradually cleared, two figures stood in place. One tall figure was the Snow Mountain King. One shorter figure was Eric. In the icy, snowy battlefield, this battle had ended. The Snow Mountain King's body was pierced with a large hole, and Eric was the victor. He was slightly stunned for a moment, eyes staring at her. Because he couldn't believe he had won, the Snow Mountain King's body cracked like an ice statue, damaged. Gradually, her body melted into demon energy. She laughed a laugh of release, ha-ha. The Snow Mountain King looked at Eric, stammering a few last words. Finally, he seemed to understand what she wanted to say. His face slightly trembling, he bowed his head, gritting his teeth, trying to hide his complex feelings. But unexpectedly, the Snow Mountain King said thank you. For the first time, he saw tears of happiness. On her cold face, the snowy mountain was no longer cold. Warm, golden sunlight shone down. The Snow Mountain King's body lost control and collapsed to the ground. Dark clouds in the sky dispersed. Making way for warm sunlight, sunlight shone on her face, adorning the happy smile of release. No more cold ice and snow. The Snow Mountain King departed peacefully, on a beautiful sunny day before Eric at this moment. Her body, condensed from demon energy, began to disintegrate in an instant. This place no longer had the Snow Mountain King. She transformed into an energy seal in the shape of a snowy mountain on Eric's hand. And where the Snow Mountain King disappeared, a small branch full of vitality grew soon. It bloomed and swayed under warm sunlight, bright white flowers representing abundant vitality, a new life, a new journey. Eric softly whispered, "Rest in peace." Thus his first mission was completed. The car appeared and applauded, praising him for truly devouring the Snow Mountain King. Wonderful. Eric turned his head and sighed. Words carrying reproach, it seemed this first test. From the start was too difficult. The car felt no guilt. He laughed and said, "Our clan is invincible, if even this cannot be overcome." Then you can't call yourself a member of the Merbinger family. This sentence made Eric angry, but he couldn't do anything. You think to yourself, is this the reason why people call Merbinger family members arrogant? The car continued to sigh, but indeed I find it very surprising. Even if you have talent, I think you should take at least 1 to 3 years. But a kid who has only been learning magic for a few years defeated the Snow Mountain King in just 1 month. Eric calmly corrected him, it's 1 month. The car thought you were talking about the time to defeat the Snow Mountain King. He nodded, yes, 1 month. Eric shook his head and held up 2 fingers, no. I have only been learning magic for 1 month, about 1 to 2 months. The car laughed, ha, 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 what a bad joke. But seeing Eric's serious face, he suddenly paused. You nodded, honestly. He asked again, isn't this a Merbinger-style arrogant joke? Eric seriously shook his head. The car found you more and more agreeable. He laughed loudly, ha, ha, ha. My judgment of people is really good. Eric was very suspicious, quoting his words. He just said that. I repeat exactly. Even if I have talent just now. Seeing the descendant not leaving any dignity for himself, the car used a special move, hugging Eric and patting his back, this kid. Ah, ha, ha. Indeed, Eric had to beg for mercy from his pain. After joking around, the two sat down to chat. The car asked how she was in her last moments. Eric honestly shared that she smiled. The car felt relieved hearing this news, really glad. Now it's time to part. Eric politely bowed and said thank you for everything so far. The car nodded, take care on your way back. Eric shyly hesitated. I probably can't visit often. The car did not blame him, I understand. After all, the position of clan leader is extremely busy. Then Eric turned and left all right then. But after a few steps, he turned back to the car's surprised eyes. Eric asked a very naive question. How did I get outside? The car raised his hand and laughed, ha ha, told you you've been outside countless times, don't you remember? Eric hadn't recovered when a light orb punched him in the face. Immediately after he woke up in the real world. That damn ancestor, what respect he held his face rolling on the floor. My face, my handsome face. Mephi laughed loudly, ha ha ha, looks like that crazy car guy killed you. Speaking of this, Eric got even angrier. Who wouldn't say a word before killing someone, Mephi asked with concern. Have you devoured the Snow Mountain King yet? Eric rolled up his sleeve to show the new seal, just done he. Seeing that Mephi tilted his head, praising himself, all thanks to me. Eric lazily retorted, yes, our great demon king is #1. In his heart, he thought this guy really likes to turn everything upside down. Thanks to Mephi, he smiled. In his heart, he was a bit panicked about Eric's progress. No way, I just told him a few things. This guy has surpassed genius level. He really is a monster. After flattering, he asked, I'm also curious about this. Wasn't it before? You had a rather special relationship with the Snow Mountain King. Why didn't you let her become a demon anymore? Mephi was sweating nervously. Eric switched to gossip mode. At the end, I peeked into the Snow Mountain King's memories a bit. Why did you do that? Mephi stammered, I am the Demon King. She was just a mid-level demon type, nothing more, nothing less. He recalled old memories and recounted, at that time I was just a bit bored. And I heard someone say in the Snow Mountain King that she would definitely become a demon. So I came to see who that person was. Well, wanting to become a demon, she was a bit lacking indeed. But her ambition and skills were commendable. Mephi praised himself. If the person she met wasn't the perfect demon king, but someone like Isabelle or Lilith, she would have been torn apart already. Anyway, I told her to come find me again when she gets stronger, then left her there. Eric asked further, Is that all, you never met her again? Mephi was startled and shouted, Why would I meet her again? But the truth is, he secretly went to Snow Mountain and saw the Snow Mountain King having a good time with the car, so our Demon King had to leave reluctantly. Not wanting to be the third party, truly understanding to the point of heartbreak, when leaving still smiling and blessing the other party. Even now thinking about it, I can't help but smile and blush. Eric's mind shifted gears very quickly. He clapped his hands and exclaimed, I understand. Mephi wondered why. You look like a cunning cat bullying a heartbroken mouse. Do you know the way those snot-nosed brats bully the girl they like unilaterally? Indeed, Mephi was so ashamed that he got angry and growled, Snot-nosed unilaterally. Eric laughed mockingly and calmly. This is exactly why, after thousands of years, you are still single. Mephi was very angry, but other than claws and beak, he couldn't do anything. Damn it, how dare you mock me? Eric took advantage of this and teased more and more fiercely, Mephi is a single dog. Mephi got furious and shouted loudly, Go to hell, in that challenge space. The fist of O2 was still smoking. This very fist just sent Eric out of this space. He laughed and said the guy was indeed an interesting junior. The spring wind rustled, blowing a few green leaves off the branches. He suddenly felt a bit sad and whispered, "Do you think so?" To closed his eyes as if searching for an old friend who had gone far away, mumbling, "Are you not angry with me?" A painful colored memory appeared in Oto's mind, a trembling hand holding a baby. The snowman no longer had breath. The voice was also trembling. Snow Mountain King knelt on the ground, her grandmother's body full of the tribe's blood. She blamed herself. She could not accept the painful truth that her ambition had caused the death of people in the tribe. Like this. Oto appeared at this moment. He softly called Snow Mountain King. She suddenly became mad, her eyes coldly staring at him, but mostly she hated herself more. Snow Mountain King tilted her head to the sky, crying in heart-wrenching pain. Oto crossed his arms and watched. The demonic energy burst around her. Finally, she reached out her hand toward him. Tears rolled down her face, begging Oto for mercy. Before being swallowed by the demonic energy, she pleaded, "Please kill me." And Snow Mountain King saw Oto's lips move slightly. He said sorry he did not kill her, but raised his hand to seal her with magic. When Oto closed his hands, completing the seal, Snow Mountain King was destined to become a trial target for the descendants of the clan. Merbinger, but Oto could not be happy because he had forever lost a friend. Back to the present, he opened his eyes softly, whispering, "Thank you." Standing under the spring morning sunlight, Oto said, "Throw away your regrets and responsibilities to that child, and rest in peace." He shed tears and said farewell, "See you in the next life." He looked up at the high sky. "I hope it will be better than now." At the house full of books, like a library left by the ancestors of the Merbinger clan, Mephi asked confusedly, "Eric, what are you rummaging through?" He did not stop the work in his hands, but continued flipping through books. "I have to find some things." Mephi did not understand. "Find what made you turn the whole library upside down?" Suddenly, something glowed inside Eric's coat. He reached in and took it out. Mephi exclaimed in surprise, "Wait, isn't that—" He took out a small blue egg. Mephi suspiciously said, "Ice crystal star." Eric recalled Oto's instruction, "Hold this ice crystal and go find the camellia god." At that time, he was very surprised. "What did he just say? Give it to Camellia, you mean the camellia flower?" He replied, "Yes, exactly. That person will become your new guide." Eric scratched his head. "Is this a mission?" Oto nodded yes. He curiously looked at the ice crystal that looked like a chicken egg in his hand, tiredly asked, "How long do I have to do this mission? At this rate, I'll become a hunchback old man." Oto squinted seriously and answered, "Until you reach the rank of our predecessors." Eric was stunned, stammering, "Predecessors." Oto reassured him. "You must have many questions, but they will always be willing to answer. Within a certain time, the predecessors have completed and left behind many things on this land. We have prepared many missions to guide you to him, so all you need to do is diligently walk that path." Eric put the egg into his coat pocket. "All right. I just want to make sure I carry this egg with me." Oto said apologetically, "I'm sorry for putting this burden on you." He entrusted Hope, "But this path only you, Eric Merbinger, Lord of Merbinger, can walk. Go ahead." He seriously said, "Go and complete the winter back to reality." Eric looked at the ice crystal and summarized for Mephi, "Well, it's just, I was told to bring this ice crystal to the camellia god." Mephi laughed out loud, covering his face. "Ha ha ha." He struggled to hold back laughter. The camellia god. "I guess he's trying to create winter." Obviously, Eric didn't understand anything. He asked about winter. "Do you know what it means?" He nodded sarcastically. "Of course, those disgusting Four Seasons people." He frowned with hatred. "They have haunted demon lords like me." Hearing this, Eric suddenly felt interested. He stood up and requested, "Please tell me more details." Mephi turned away. "Why should I tell you?" Eric held up 4 fingers, 4 days off as a condition. Mephi glared at him. "You think 4 days off will do anything?" Eric had to concede. "All right, then. So is the speech ban lifted now?" "No more than that." Having achieved his goal, Mephi smiled. He, very good. Listen carefully." He began to share, "There are 4 subordinates who supported our predecessors to lay the foundation of Merbinger spring-summer, autumn-winter. Because of their personalities and traits suitable for each season, we demons often call them the 4 seasons. One of them, Autohan, corresponds to winter," Mephi said in any case. "The truth is someone stays behind just to guide such tasks. It means he is trying to pass on the power he possesses to you." Hearing this, Eric couldn't help but think, so if this mission is completed, You can also receive missions from the other Four Seasons people. Having the power of the Four Seasons also means you can have the power like a predecessor. The ones they will support. If Eric can continue to devour strong seals like the seal of cruelty or even stronger ones, then, he smiled, very likely, you will successfully rebuild your family. Eric asked, then how important is this ice crystal to the camellia god that he needs it so much? Mifi thought for a moment and replied, the ice crystal is the core of winter only formed from the depths of the snowy mountains permanently covered in snow. Or in other words, it is a divine egg. Since the camellia is a flower that blooms in winter, there is no flower pot better than the ice crystal. Eric, embodying a curious boy, asked, then where should I go to meet the camellia god? Mifi answered, maybe in the flower temple somewhere in the south. Hearing this name, Eric was very surprised. The flower temple, I've only heard about it in legends, but it really exists. Mifi nodded. Yes, that noisy name must be ruling the temple. Hearing that, Eric began to seriously consider the matter. From this moment on, he could guarantee that. After reviewing the records in the royal library, but isn't he becoming too friendly? What scheme is he plotting this time? He suddenly sensed a power almost imperceptible around Mifi. His soul form seemed to grow stronger, but he did not hide it at all. On the contrary, he was smugly thinking, he seems to have noticed my power has returned a bit. However, even if you notice my power, you can't do anything. You will have no choice but to complete the missions, to become stronger. Eric also had the same speculation, completing missions to become stronger, and at the same time they can make Mephisto stronger. And then finally you can receive a great demon lord capable of plunging this world into misery. Mifi saw Eric's body trembling. He thought it was a face full of suffering. You must be afraid, of course you must be afraid. Mifi was very excited. Although annoyed to leave a Merbinger just to become stronger, he had to accept it. His recovery process needed to be prioritized, but his eyes suddenly caught Eric's abnormality. Huh, Mifi saw the delighted smile on his lips. He suddenly screamed inside, that bastard is smiling again. He didn't know that now he was the juicy prey in Eric's eyes. Eric schemed, so that means he can even absorb Mephisto's power. After all, to let him recover his power and escape from you, you need to become stronger. Eric's abnormality made Mifi tremble with fear. What the hell is wrong with that bastard? Could it be he has gone from fear to madness? Eric's smile gradually lost its humanity, making a demon king like Mifi feel a chill down his spine. He kept reassuring himself, was he going insane or should he just stop thinking for now? Then Eric adjusted his mood and was fine. It's time I have finished. After finishing everything I needed to do, should we return here? No, the two of them didn't think much and decided to leave. He looked up at the small, distant water crevice above. Because his power was different from before, Eric could easily fly up to the crack after lightly stepping onto the high cliff. He praised himself. Just a month ago, it was very difficult to come back here. But now it's as easy as eating cake. Mifi grumbled, you are really too arrogant. The two did not stop, but rushed like a gust of wind, blowing away the loose snow on the path. Now I have a guide. So should I head straight to the red-eyed tribe? Eric smiled with anticipation. He quickly returned to the snow tribe. He wasn't sure if it was because he had fought the snow people for a very long time, or maybe because he had swallowed the Demon King's seal, but he wanted to see them. But when he arrived, Eric's eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. The snow tribe was heavily devastated, white snow stained with patches of bright red blood that had dried. What was this? The snow people's bodies lay scattered on the ground. Houses and village architecture were destroyed. Desolate was the word to describe this place. Eric whispered what happened here in this world. Some victims were brutally tortured. 10 spears pierced through them. Mifi commented, it looks like they were killed slowly, even though they could have been killed instantly. Then surely they were used for entertainment purposes. He coldly concluded, I don't know who the culprit is, but they have a cruel nature. Much more evil than most demon species. Eric looked at the bloody ruined scene before him. He said, I feel a bit uncomfortable. He lifted his foot and stepped forward. Because the snow people are monsters, they can die at any time. Even if he had killed many snow people, he would never regard them as toys. Eric gritted his teeth, suppressing the unusual emotions rising. This uncomfortable feeling. Maybe it's because of the task of swallowing the Snow Mountain King. He exhaled, trying to calm himself down. You are not the Snow Mountain King. You have no right to pity the snow people. Thinking this, his pupils suddenly contracted. In front were bodies upside down with legs in the air, heads stuck into the cold, snowy ground. Eric stepped to a small snow mound nearby. He dug into the snow with his hands despite the cold frost biting them. Eric gritted his teeth as a drop fell down, unclear if it was sweat or tears, gradually under the white snow. He dug out a baby-sized fur hat. Eric couldn't help but scream in pain. Nameless pain spread throughout his heart. He frantically dug through the snow, wanting to know clearly who lay beneath the white snow. Finally, little Manhwa appeared after the cold white snow. No longer breathing, the boy passed away with tears still on his face. Memories of Manhwa flooded Eric's mind. It seemed they had a new member. The boy was always lively and adorable. From now on, the path would become more difficult. Then let's eat something before we depart. Eric darkened his face, silent. The atmosphere suddenly grew colder. Even Mephi frowned. He looked at the victims with heads stuck in the snow. His voice grew colder. "This is what that bastard caused before, right?" Mephi replied, "Yes." The demon of deep hatred in Eric seemed activated. He spoke in a low voice. "Aren't they the ones making me feel even more uncomfortable?" Scene changed to a white forest covered by thick snow. Chen tightly gripped his sword. He silently walked last behind Ed, despite having a severely injured arm. He still struggled, taking heavy steps closely behind Isabelle while she kept rushing forward. Isabelle ran with heavy breathing. Warm breath turned into white smoke, vanishing in the freezing air. She ran fast on the thick white snow, but because the snow was too slippery, Isabelle suddenly slipped and fell. Seeing her fall, suddenly On hurriedly ran over, asking if the mistress was okay. Isabelle was gently helped up by him. She spoke to reassure, "I'm still fine, don't worry about me." Isabelle ordered, "We don't know when the assassins will come back. So focus on finding that cemetery," she said anxiously. "But now you should rest." Isabelle's eyes became very determined. "I am the child of the Blue Lion. I don't want to be a burden to everyone again." He really wanted to stop her. The mistress, Isabelle, trembled, clutching the map tightly in her hand. She thought silently, "The assassins chasing me have caused many deaths. With their sacrifice, I cannot collapse here." Thus, Isabelle and Chen and Ed continued moving forward. She looked at the map, feeling doubtful. It had already been a month. "We have been searching for the cemetery for a month now." But Isabelle could not avoid feeling helpless. She frowned, wondering where it could be in this world. Her eyes welled up. She quietly looked up at the sky. At this moment, Isabelle was almost at a dead end. She only knew to call out desperately from the bottom of her heart, "Father!" Suddenly, a harsh voice rang out. "The only daughter of Lord Blue Lion. She can't even swing a sword properly anymore." Scene changes. A large castle appeared towering under the moonlit sky. A gloomy black cluster, the Great Lion Clan, the Blue Lion Clan. The servants in the castle constantly discussed Isabelle's strength. If considering based on the rules that were announced, the lion only follows the strong. Then the mistress, another person seeing her approaching, immediately spoke up to warn, "Hey, do you intend to let her hear that?" Isabelle, of course, heard every word they said clearly. But instead of speaking up to refute, she chose to remain silent and quietly left. Knowing she was weak, Isabelle worked very hard to practice non-stop. Every day she practiced swordsmanship alone in the yard from early morning until late at night. Although Isabelle was very determined and tried hard, everything still did not change. At that moment, the sword in her hand suddenly fell, stabbing straight into the ground. Why? She gasped, continuously asking herself questions in her mind. Why do I have no talent at all? Isabelle helplessly bowed her head onto the sword. The ridicule echoed in her ears. Each word was like a knife stabbing deep into her heart. The only daughter of Lord Blue Lion. Yet she can't even swing a sword properly anymore. The future of the Kyo family is bleak. It's unfortunate that Blue Lion has such a child. The beloved child of the family is a daughter. Because she is the daughter of Blue Lion, she is treated well. What are we expecting from a woman? The lion only follows the strong. At least try harder. A flower without fragrance, yet claims to be the child of Blue Lion. Just as Isabelle was despairing, suddenly a familiar voice sounded behind her, Isabelle. She was surprised, quickly turning around to call her father. He was Blue Lion Herman Q2. Father and daughter sat together chatting under the bright moon. Herman said sadly, "Father, sorry for making you carry the burden." Isabelle shook her head, replying, "No, it's just that I'm not good enough." He smiled gently. "Daughter, you don't have to follow my path and become Blue Lion." Herman gently comforted her. "You are not gifted, but you are still a proud member of the family." Isabelle intended to respond, but her father suddenly laughed loudly, then patted her arm and said, "And your father is still as strong as an ox." Try touching these strong muscles. She smiled softly, replying, "That's your armor, father." However, Isabelle was still very sad. "Sorry, father, but I—" Herman smiled gently, showing the demeanor of a kind father. He advised her not to worry about Blue Lion Herman Keo. Isabelle's eyes welled up as she looked at Herman. She silently listened to what he said as usual. "Then I will continue to pursue my dream to become the best swordsman on the continent." Though tears still streamed down her cheeks, Isabelle suddenly smiled brightly. Rarely ironically, not long after Herman suddenly fell seriously ill. Isabelle's choked voice echoed through the hallway. "Why won't father wake up?" Isabelle gently held his weak hand after the doctor had examined him thoroughly. The doctor immediately reported Herman's condition. He had symptoms similar to obstructive disease. The doctor carefully explained the reason. His health had deteriorated because he had used too much spiritual energy recklessly. If we don't treat it early, his muscles will atrophy. Isabelle looked sadly at his haggard face. Now she could only remain silent, listening as the doctor continued to analyze. "The problem will be solved if we can restore his vitality, but that is almost impossible with human ability simply because he has already lost too much vitality in his body." His voice deepened at this moment. "The god will have no other choice but to rely on some magic for assistance." At that very moment, all thoughts in Isabelle's mind vanished. She only knew one thing: she had to save her father. Because ordinary items were completely ineffective in treating her father, she would risk her life to get advanced magical tools that had been sealed in the Magic Tower or the Possession Academy, even though she had risked her life traveling everywhere to find a cure for Herman, but their magical tools were also ineffective. Isabelle was devastated, realizing she could not find anything that could treat her father's illness. Suddenly one day, when Isabelle was resting with Trend and Ed at a tavern, she happened to overhear a conversation between two men there. "Hey, do you know there is a cemetery ruled by the Snow Mountain King in the Snowy Mountains?" The man sipped while chatting. "Really, if that is the king's cemetery, then that place must be full of treasures and many magical tools that humans could never obtain. If we had one of those, we would be rich, so should we try to get it?" Isabelle listened attentively while nodding to signal Ed and Chen. Suddenly, the man loudly said, "Moron, do you want to be eaten by snow people just for that legendary item?" After receiving her signal, the two immediately understood. The man continued advising the other not to waste his life and to keep drinking. Then Isabelle stepped forward to inquire information from the two men. After trying her best to find that cemetery, she also learned that it existed and she could find it. She thought everything would go smoothly, but a problem occurred. Because this plan leaked to her uncle, everything around suddenly became chaotic. Continuous screams echoed. "Run, mistress! Save me! My uncle Pao Keo, the one who has been waiting for a chance to seize the Blue Lion throne, sent assassins to kill me because I am the heir." Returning to reality, Isabelle still diligently relied on the map to search for the cemetery. She thought to herself, just Isabelle gritting her teeth. She could not believe what Paul had done. How cruel he really was. Chen suddenly shouted loudly, "Mistress, you must hide!" She panicked and replied, "Why?" Before Isabelle could figure out what was happening, Ed suddenly appeared, grabbed her hand, and forcefully pulled Isabelle back. Ed firmly kept her close beside him. Then a slow voice sounded, startling Isabelle. "We had to search everywhere to find you." He quickly drew his sword. His eyes immediately became alert. The man calmly said, "We wondered where you had been hiding. Anyway, you have appeared now." With his sharpness, Chen only glanced once and recognized him as the sixth Blue Wolf, the elite knight secretly sent by Pao Keo. Hanun sneered. "Because you are still members of the Pao Keo clan, at least I will let you go." Gently, he slowly inquired, "Since you are here, the mistress must be nearby, right?" Chen angrily shouted at him to attract attention. "Nonsense, Hanun! You will pay for the deaths of Isaac and Jack with your own life." In his heart, he prayed that the mistress would run and not look back. Isabelle, witnessing that scene, immediately lost her composure and wanted to rush forward, but was stopped by Ed. "Just the two of us cannot stop them." Isabelle stubbornly replied, "I have to go, or Chen will die." He loudly explained, "Chen is risking his life to buy us time to escape. Are you trying to let him sacrifice himself in vain?" She was unwilling, gritting her teeth, but Chen suddenly shouted loudly. His piercing scream echoed throughout the forest. Mistress Isabelle immediately turned around and then was stunned. Her eyes widened as she looked at Chen. Hanun triumphantly stepped on Chen's body loudly so Isabelle could hear, "Your loyal servant is about to die. Are you just going to leave him here?" He tried to use his last bit of strength to mock Hanun. "Fool, the mistress has gone far away already." He said nothing and directly stabbed the sword through Chen's body. Hanun smiled wickedly, then began to pretend to be disappointed. Surely she has abandoned her loyal knight. She is also quite ruthless. So now Hanun deliberately lures Isabelle to appear by harming him. "I will cut your head off," just as the sword was about to strike Chen. Isabelle couldn't hold back and shouted loudly to stop. She didn't want to see anyone else sacrifice their life for her anymore, so she chose to appear, though Isabelle was very scared inside. Despite tears still flowing non-stop, she firmly made a request. "Are you aiming at me? Then just kill me and let Chen go." Hanun calmly replied, "I'm sorry, but I will not do that." Isabelle exclaimed in shock, what he casually explained that we have decided to kill all those involved or who witnessed this event. Isabelle's throat immediately choked and she couldn't speak. Hanun struck a psychological blow with a reproachful sentence. If you hadn't run away, everyone could have survived and been happy. With their families. He slowly uttered 4 words, really. The images of those who sacrificed for her kept appearing. The painful face of Manhwa was deeply engraved in Isabelle's mind. Hanun smirked and spat out the last word, pity. Isabelle's face instantly darkened. Her mind at this moment was completely shattered by the harsh words from him. She kept blaming herself. All the innocent people died because of someone like her. Hanun took the opportunity to swing the sword toward her. "Let's end this matter." In the critical moment, suddenly another voice rang out, "I understand." Hanun shouted in surprise, "Who is that?" A dark branch gently swayed in the cold, snowy wind. The voice just now sounded again, moving at that moment. A foot suddenly appeared from somewhere gently placed on the branch. Hanun gritted his teeth, furious that someone else ruined his plan. Eric calmly sat on the branch, raising his eyebrows, and replied, "Just a passing demon." In anger, Hanun shouted curses at the bastard. The story was told earlier. Eric, who had received a mission to make winter perfect after completing his first task. After he prepared to leave the snowy mountain to carry out the mission, a bloody scene suddenly appeared. He learned about the snow people. Manhwa was also one of the victims, and humans were all brutally slaughtered. Meanwhile, Isabelle was searching for the Snow Mountain King to cure her father's illness. She was chased by a group of Blue Wolf assassins, namely Hanun and his gang, who were sent by her uncle. And at that dangerous moment, Hanun showed contempt for Eric the demon. "Who the hell are you to interfere with my business? Are you a demon worshiper? If you hadn't passed by here, maybe you could have lived." Then, Eric suddenly leapt off the branch. He jumped down so fast that Hanun couldn't react in time. By the time he recovered, Eric had landed right in front of Hanun. Hanun exclaimed in shock magic. Hanun quickly stepped back to keep distance. He was furious and shouted, "Who the hell are you?" Eric asked if everyone was okay. Ed and Isabelle were startled by him. She blankly replied, "Still okay, but..." Isabelle worriedly asked, "Are you okay too?" Eric slipped and fell in front of everyone. He suppressed the pain and answered, of course. Hanun's subordinates stood aside, discussing, "Do mages usually land like that? Didn't he just fall? Why didn't he get up? How embarrassing!" Eric slowly stood up, his whole body trembling from embarrassment. He helplessly sighed inwardly. If there was no slippery snow, I could have impressed them. Isabelle looked at Eric's back and suddenly remembered something. "Weren't you missing?" She silently vowed, "I can't let him fight alone like that." Isabelle shouted, "A warning run you can't win." At this moment, Hanun also reminded his mistress, "Didn't I tell you we won't spare? Any witnesses?" He stared at Eric, then ordered his subordinates to eliminate that demon. After receiving the order, they all simultaneously rushed like arrows towards him. Isabelle screamed in fear. Eric bowed his head and muttered, "That's right, kindness was given to you." He looked at them with fiery eyes full of hatred. "Bastards like you are truly a waste." Eric immediately unleashed his first storm technique. He shouted and then directed the power from his palm towards them. Hanun's subordinates were momentarily confused. They did not know their limits and only knew to rush forward to attack Eric. Within minutes, all of Hanun's subordinates were swallowed by a source of light emitted. Eric clenched his fist decisively and punched Cao Chung. A cracking sound was heard, and at that moment, all of them were defeated by Eric. Ed just helped Chen up. The scene before him shocked him. He exclaimed, "Even Hanun can't believe his eyes. What the hell is this?" He angrily shouted, "What are you guys doing? Kill him quickly, don't give him a chance to make a move." The remaining subordinates immediately charged, "Die." Eric was as fast as lightning. Within 1 second, he was in front of them. He sneered and replied, "Who gave you permission?" Eric's eyes shone brightly as he stared at them. His gaze was sharp, as if wanting to devour them all. Eric raised his hand into the air and shouted the name of his next technique, piercing. Countless swords were immediately created, each sword aimed straight at Hanun's subordinates. Each one of them was pierced through their bodies by the swords. They screamed in pain, "Break it!" One of them, terrified by Eric's power, fled quickly while begging for mercy. But even so, he could not escape a tragic fate. Like the others, Eric alone could easily eliminate all of Hanun's subordinates. Hanun gradually became fearful of Eric's terrifying power. "Who the hell are you?" "You already know who we are, right?" Eric only responded to him with a contemptuous smile. "I don't care who you are, then why don't you kneel before me?" Hanun gritted his teeth, trembling with anger. He still boldly declared, "I will kill you." Isabelle hid behind a large tree, her mouth agape, curious about Eric's identity. "Who is that man? He defeated the Blue Wolf group so easily, didn't he? That's not the point now." Isabelle carefully assessed him through her observation. "He must be a powerful mage, but he looks very dangerous if I get too close." Hanun could no longer control himself. He tightly gripped his sword and charged at Eric. Hanun seemed to become a madman, swinging his sword wildly and shouting continuously. "At least I have to kill you." Eric was quite surprised by Hanun's attack speed. "He's that fast." Seeing the situation becoming tense, Isabelle suddenly rushed out and loudly reminded, "Keep your distance from him." Eric quickly cast another technique, weapon enhancement. Thanks to his quick reflexes, Hanun was immediately knocked back by the bullet. Eric also successfully kept his distance from him. Hanun intended to swing his sword for another attack. That intention was seen through by Eric. He quickly moved ahead of him with ice wind. Huge ice blocks continuously rose from the ground. Hanun laughed loudly and said, "Do you really think you can stop me with this kind of magic?" He charged straight into the ice blocks, growing like mushrooms, then swung his sword to smash them all. Just as Hanun thought he was about to reach Eric, "You're finished, bastard." At that moment, Eric was very calm, rushing straight at him without hesitation, his face unchanged when he saw Hanun's sword tip nearly touch his body. Eric suddenly shouted, "Ice pillar!" A huge ice block immediately appeared, absorbing all of Hanun's attacks, then reflected the attack back at him. Hanun was puzzled, wondering why it did not break. Eric just smiled slightly. "Do you know what is more important than that?" He touched his head. "That signal means your head is about to be buried underground." Hearing that, Hanun immediately sweated in fear. "What, you damn dog, you!" Then the ice block in front of Hanun suddenly flew up and directly struck a critical blow to his head. The fierce battle finally ended. Just as Eric said, Hanun's head was buried deep underground after the battle ended. Eric stood silently for a moment in the snowy forest. Ed kept marveling. Unbelievable. He defeated the Blue Wolf group instantly. Isabelle also agreed. She didn't expect there to be a mage like that on the hill. She quietly hid behind a tree, watching him for a while longer. Amazing. He doesn't seem to be his age, but Isabelle was extremely curious about Eric. How could he be so strong? So young, yet he is already that strong. He can completely match Taza Neresta, a person in the new 3 constellation. Why don't I know who he is? Truly a mysterious person. Eric still stood there calmly taking a deep breath, then gently lifted his face to the sky. In the middle of a vast, snowy forest, only the sound of a deep sigh from his heart could be heard. Eric remembered those who had sacrificed. Not only Manhwa, but also other beasts. He slowly opened his eyes, silently praying for them, "Please rest in peace." Mayfi felt uncomfortable. He immediately interrupted, "Are they just staring at you? Why don't you say something to them? They look so much that it gave me goosebumps." "Hello, Mayfi." Eric started to speak. "Hello?" He was silent, not knowing what to do, because Eric appeared suddenly without any self-introduction. The 3 of them, Isabelle, Chen, and S, held their breath, waiting for him to speak. Eric forced a smile and said, "All right, then. It's been a while, hasn't it?" Chen tightened his grip on the sword. He was always on high alert. Even if he helped us, he was still a complete stranger. "Don't lose vigilance so early. If he has no other motives, then he is just as dangerous as they are." Just as Chen was about to act, Isabelle suddenly knelt down, surprising Chen. She was a princess, yet Isabelle knelt before Eric. She bowed her head solemnly, expressing gratitude. "Thank you, our savior." Chen was surprised. Mistress Ed also seemed puzzled why the mistress knelt. Eric awkwardly waved his hand, saying, "No need to do that." Isabelle ignored him and called Chen and S. They immediately obeyed. Chen and S knelt and expressed in unison, "Thank you, our savior." That made Eric even more embarrassed. He quickly explained, "Anyone would do the same as I did. So please stand up." Mevy stood with arms crossed, very pleased with Isabelle's attitude. She seemed to know how to behave, unlike those two bastards earlier. She boldly stepped in front of Eric, then made a request. It sounded rude, but "May I ask my savior for a favor?" He was so scared his face turned pale. Eric trembled and asked, "Where do I have to go?" Isabelle seriously held his hand. "No, I want to entrust you." Her voice stammered, "My hand." Seeing her determined attitude, Eric felt a bit embarrassed. His face flushed red like a ripe tomato. Eric wondered what this was. The silent night gradually fell. The bright moon softly shone on the tall mountain ranges standing proudly in the sky. The clatter of a carriage echoed softly in the forest. Quietly, Eric sat in the carriage facing Ed and Isabelle. He propped his chin with his hand, looking thoughtful. Mavie sighed and whispered to remind him, "I can see you smirking, bastard." "Cover it up if you're about to," Chen said. Eric immediately raised both hands to cover half of his face. At this moment, he felt very happy, just as I expected. Eric looked at the gold coin in his hand because he was given something extremely valuable. Going back a few minutes before he got into the carriage, Eric was surprised to realize Isabelle had slipped a gold coin into his hand. "This is gold." He examined it for a while. Not only that, but it was also a green lion coin. Eric curiously asked, "Are you the lady of the Keogh family?" Isabelle nodded. "Yes, that's right, sorry." Only then did he realize that was the reason why. She was so beautiful. From the moment she was born until now, she had been known as the flower without scent. Isabelle, well, even though her extraordinary beauty had made the crown prince infatuated and proposed to her, she was still abandoned just because she was a flower without scent, a person born without any talent. Since she was a child, Isabelle had been used to swallowing bitterness in response to those sarcastic words. If the flesh and blood of a lion have no fangs and sharp teeth, then they deserve such an end. Eric felt a bit sorry for her fate. He had heard that after the marriage broke down, she lived alone in her land. Isabelle's face, covered with numerous wounds, big and small, she could only silently bow her head, waiting for him to respond, to dispel the awkward atmosphere between them. Eric quickly spoke up to introduce himself. "My name is Rick. It is truly an honor to meet the only daughter of Lord Green Lion." She awkwardly asked why it was an honor to meet someone like me. He happily smiled. Eric gently comforted Isabelle. "You should be proud of yourself. From what I see, your perseverance is not something to be ashamed of for the name Green Lion, because this was the first time Isabelle was praised by someone." She shyly replied, "Thank you." He skillfully brought up her request. "Oh, right, you mentioned something about a commission, didn't you?" Isabelle nodded and answered, "Yes. Now I have nothing but—" She decisively made a request. "Could you escort us back to the capital?" Chen shouted in panic. "Mistress, we still haven't found that place yet." Isabelle turned around and explained, Chen, "I don't want to lose you all just because of my greed. First I have to go, meet my uncle to negotiate." He was helpless before her determination. Mistress Eric was curious upon hearing that. Then he secretly glanced at Hanun and guessed. Maybe these knights are also part of the Keogh family. Could there be some hidden secrets in their family? Eric frowned. He suddenly remembered something. "I also heard that Lord Green Lion is suffering from a rather incurable disease. She is searching for a cure I must have forgotten. Shin had told me that before." At that moment, a bold thought suddenly appeared in his mind. "Wait, can I make Lord Green Lion owe me?" At this moment, Eric imagined a bright future. In that scene, he and Herman happily shook hands. Continuous compliments echoed in his ears. If the Merbinger family is rebuilt and has Lord Green Lion's favor, Merbinger cures Lord Green Lion's disease, and Merbinger and Green Lion smile while shaking hands. The relationship between the families would be tightly bonded. He thought to himself, it would be a wonderful scene, right? Eric proud, he smiled and felt proud of himself. Very smart, always keeping a cool head. Isabelle saw him silent for a long time. Thinking he would not agree, she made another proposal. "Indeed, it's hard for us to get your help. Then I will give you twice as much as what I just offered you. Consider it a reward after you complete the commission." Eric did not respond, but stared intently at the gold coins in his hand. Isabelle anxiously asked, "I guess it's not possible, right?" She stepped forward to withdraw her request, embarrassed. Then his mouth suddenly twitched, which made Isabelle confused. He tightly held her hand, and immediately agreed to Isabelle's request. "I will escort you safely, my lady." Back to reality. Eric was sitting with Isabelle, Chen, and Ed on the carriage heading back to the capital. Mayfi curiously asked, "There's a pile of treasure in Sin-A's nest, so why do you still need money?" Eric used his telepathic thoughts to answer. "I have calculated everything." Also, he pursed his lips and silently scolded, "Don't say that if you have ever been hungry and cold before." He silently looked at him. Mephi showed a confused face. Eric glared at him angrily and patiently explained, "What am I supposed to do now when I don't have a single penny on me? Maybe it's not important to you because you're a useless ghost, but humans need money to eat and sleep. Do you think you understand the state of deprivation?" Mephi casually replied, "That's a human problem." Eric's face showed interest. He covered his mouth and marveled at that ability. "This telepathy is quite convenient. With just a little energy, I can talk to whoever I want." Mephi sneered and said, "I taught you just because I feel very uncomfortable." Whenever someone around you is silent, Eric couldn't help teasing him. "I know why you hate being silenced now."
"You're so nosy," Mephi angrily shouted. "How dare you?" He changed the subject. "Forget it."
"Are you going to sit quietly like that until the end of the journey? You look more disgusting than you think."
"What should I do now? So bored I'm losing distance."
Isabelle always attentively watched him. She wondered why he said nothing. "Isn't it because I commissioned him?" Isabelle bit her lip to let Eric do as he wished. But now she needed his help, she thought silently. If the uncle sent even stronger assassins, there's no way the three of us can outsmart them. Scene shifts to the massive family castle of Isabelle standing tall under the dark night. Yu ominously sits on the throne. Hearing the subordinate's report, he exclaimed in surprise, "Team 6 has already been eliminated." The intelligent subordinate trembled all over. He bowed his head in guilt. "I apologize." Bao slowly approached him. He coldly drew his sword. "If you apologize." Bao shouted angrily, "Then you shouldn't have done anything from the start, and now you're apologizing." Bao decisively swung the sword, piercing through the subordinate kneeling at his feet. His head immediately severed from his body. Other subordinates appeared to clean up the scene after dealing with that man. Bao calmly turned to ask Juan, "Where do you think Isabelle will go?" He carefully analyzed, "Because her traces leaving the snowy mountain have been confirmed." Juan made a guess based on observations. "It's very likely she is returning to the capital." Bao wondered, "If she is returning to the capital, does that mean she wants to negotiate with me?" He sneered and replied, "Very likely." He contemptuously said, "Is she really a foolish child, an incompetent girl dares to negotiate with me?" Bao swung the sword in his hand and shouted his name loudly. Juan sheathed his sword and threatened, "You only have one chance." The sound of horse hooves gradually faded until they stopped completely. The horse came to a halt. At that moment, Isabelle just woke up. Seeing this, he immediately informed her, "We have arrived at La Center, miss." Isabelle, feeling refreshed after a good sleep, stretched and said, "We arrived in just 2 days, moving non-stop." Mi-Fi suddenly grabbed her waist and complained, "My whole body hurts." Eric was surprised and replied, "A flying ghost like you." He smirked teasingly. "Don't you know the right posture helps relax your nerves? Why are you upside down?" Eric hadn't finished speaking when the scene before him caught his attention. He curiously saw inside the human castle a loud order to summon the Blue Wolf team. Two of his subordinates asked confusedly, "Why the flag?" He hurriedly explained, "Is it necessary to mobilize the strongest team to handle such a small matter? The young lady's return to the capital meant surrender." Before the subordinate finished speaking, Juan immediately beheaded him on the spot. A hunting dog must behave according to its status. He calculated Isabelle's move. She definitely had to pass La Center if she wanted to go from the snowy mountain to the capital. Juan loudly ordered to take over that place. Eric's expression suddenly turned ugly. He gaped as he looked ahead. The blue cloaks immediately caught Eric's eye embroidered with the head of a lion. The subordinates all turned their heads to look at him. Their eyes seemed to devour everything. They obeyed Hugin's orders absolutely. "Let's go to the tomb." Isabelle was not very surprised. "I expected the journey wouldn't be easy because the Lord rules here. But I didn't expect it to be this bad." Anxiously asked, "Should we turn back?" The young lady firmly refused, "Not the right time." Their carriage caught the eye of one of them. He patted the shoulder of the man beside him and pointed at the carriage. Isabelle carefully explained, "We have attracted their attention. Doing that will only make them more suspicious." She came up with an idea to abandon the carriage and secretly escape to find another place. Eric suddenly interrupted, "No need." Isabelle panicked. "What did you say?" He quietly disguised his voice. Immediately controlling the carriage, he easily passed through the guards without being questioned. He was unusually calm and quickly drove the carriage away. Isabelle sat inside, anxiously fearful. Within minutes, all four of them had safely escaped the deadly trap. Chen continued to guide the horse through a large tunnel. After exiting the tunnel, a bustling street appeared before Eric, who quickly stepped out of the carriage first. Isabelle asked curiously, "Sir, what magic did you use?" Eric calmly explained, "Just a simple illusion spell that changes our appearance. It's like hypnosis easily broken by a slight shock, so we need to be careful." She admired Eric's talent and once again bowed to express her gratitude. "Thanks to you, Rick, we have safely entered the city. I truly thank you from the bottom of my heart. Before leaving, you carefully told her to stay overnight here. I will come back after handling some matters." Isabelle agreed and replied that she would return safely. Mephi leisurely followed Eric. He felt very curious why you had to use magic. "While you could have wiped them all out, you calmly answered, 'I don't want to start a fight when I know nothing about the enemy. Besides, I need to save mana for emergencies.'" Mephi glanced around. He casually said, "What do you think the Oath and Soul contract are for? Isn't it because you're lazy?" Mephi suddenly remembered. "Anyway, you need to get to the academy quickly or something, right?" Eric nodded and replied, "Yes, but I need to find out something." The corner of his mouth immediately curled up. Eric asked Mephi a question after some time had passed. "But surely you still remember, right? You told him your plan. I need to know Dean's situation to prepare for eliminating him." Mephi shrugged and said, "I don't know who that is, but it's unlucky for him to be targeted by someone like you." Suddenly, I was attracted by a group of children playing ahead. Mephi noticed something unusual when looking at the kids. "I have a question. I sensed something like mana from that night." "What is it?" Eric immediately understood Mephi's meaning. "I guess your era hasn't seen the mana chain yet." He was confused about the mana chain. Seeing that, he didn't understand. You then briefly explained it to Mephi. "It's simple. Mana is a blessing for mages, but over time, even martial artists can develop methods to use it. Mana in the body." Eric went on to explain in more detail so he would understand clearly. If a mage uses magic by creating a magic circle in the heart, a martial artist strengthens the body by accumulating mana chains around the dantian. That's not all. You continued to provide some additional information. Similar to the mage rank division, 6 circles is a spellcaster, 7 circles is a grand mage, and 8 circles is a sage. Martial artists are divided into 1 chain for beginners, 2 chains for novices, 3 chains for experts, 4 chains for elites, and 5 chains for martial masters. To make it easier for you to understand, Miss Isabelle's knight is around the beginner level. Mephi asked further, "Are there only 5 levels?" Eric nodded and replied, "Usually yes, but there is a unique exception. A person can circulate more than 5 chains." He then curiously asked, "Who?" Seeing Mephi's curiosity, you just smiled slightly. Eric didn't beat around the bush and answered the Golden Lion. He is recognized as the strongest person on the continent. He looked disappointed when he received the answer, a nickname arrogant by human standards only. Eric shook his head and immediately refuted. "No, this time it's different. He can fight evenly with my grandfather, one of the strongest people in Merbinger's history." Mephi whispered, "I see." The two of them kept walking and chatting all the way. You suddenly stopped and said, "We've arrived." Mephi was very excited. He revealed a sinister smile on his face. "I'm looking forward to meeting him." Eric sighed wearily. This old man is stubborn again. Then you reminded yourself not to pay attention to the old man. "The important thing is," Eric happily asked, "can I buy all the newspapers for a month?" You told yourself to find out what happened while you were absent. Scene changes under the blazing sun, another magnificent castle appears. Dean's impatient voice came through. "The matter is not yet resolved." Revan kneeled on one knee on the ground. He respectfully bowed his head and apologized. "The Nooster group is guarding the hospital, like an impregnable fortress." He angrily shouted, "Damn ungrateful Nooster." Revan smartly changed the topic of conversation. "But thanks to the achievements of you when discovering that the nest is being nurtured by the Academy's high-ranking officials and the press, you have an advantage over other candidates in the competition for the principal position." Dean sighed and said, "But you can't predict what will happen. If I don't get the excavation rights to the nest, I want an overwhelming victory." He appeared very confident. He seemed ready to follow whatever. The old man ordered, "Please give the command." Dean chuckled softly. At this moment, he already had a plan. Scene changes. Covering his face, sitting at the table, he gave request to create more pressure on the Nooster group. Dean calmly reported the current situation. "Young Master, the transfer of excavation rights by the Academy's high-ranking officials in the press is under too much pressure. Not only that, This situation is no different than stabbing the senior professors in the back. The Academy's high-ranking seniors are very furious. Dean suddenly burst into tears, which made them a bit confused. The young master begged and cried, pouring all his grievances onto me. My younger sisters come to torment me every day, and that damn Eric. He hasn't contacted me even once. His hands trembled slightly. He wanted to touch the documents on the desk, but I had already warned myself. Then he suddenly stood up from his chair, gritting his teeth, saying he would continue to endure until Eric returned. The scene shifts to Eric, who quickly grasped the whole situation from a month ago. By reading the newspaper, Dean was still as cunning as ever, and I, for his sake, was facing hell. He unconsciously revealed a contemptuous expression while commenting on Dean's actions. The older the ginger, the spicier it gets. You know how to use public opinion, huh, old man? Dean Meffy silently evaluated Eric beside him. I was getting used to that expression. He clenched his hand into a fist, then confidently said to keep rising higher. It would only make my debut more brilliant. Eric suddenly stopped and thought for a moment. After all, I do feel some pity for Sin. What can I do for him? While he was thinking of ways to make it up to Sin, suddenly outside the window a bright flash appeared. Just in a moment, right where the flash appeared, a deafening explosion erupted. The sudden loud noise made both Eric and Meffy jump. They immediately turned toward the source of the sound. Outside instantly became chaotic. The screams of the nearby residents kept ringing out. "Fire! Quickly bring water!" Everyone was running around in panic. Not only that, but there were also cries of children and mothers. The surrounding people kept shouting, "Someone save us!" Eric quickly jumped up and flung open the door. The scene before him immediately shocked him. The entire neighborhood before his eyes seemed to turn into hell. Everything was engulfed in flames. Eric panicked and shouted, "What the hell is going on?" The scene shifts back a few minutes earlier before the disaster struck. Chen, still doubtful, cautiously asked the mistress, "Do you really trust Rick?" Isabelle calmly replied, "He is the one who saved us." He carefully voiced his thoughts. Although he is not Pao Kio's subordinate, what if he is an assassin sent by the Seven Masters to seize the main temple? Chen tried to persuade Isabelle. "I'm not sure about this either. But we should still be cautious first," she silently thought to herself. I understand Chen's worries, but it seems since we were at Tuyet's son, he has been overly protective of me.